Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Well, ladies and gents, it's been a while since the Premier Endurance Racing League's been in action, albeit last weekend. We return back to our racing action, though, for the Open Series. Last time out at Bathurst, we ended up with a stunner across 2 hours in which Connor Nixon ended up managing to pick up the race win. Who is going to be the second to put their name up in lights as the Open Series gets underway? Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to Sebring International Raceway in the virtual land. We'll be heading off here in the next couple of weeks to go and be racing the Sebring 12 hour. But for tonight, just 2 hours, just GT3 action. David Hayes, GT3 fan from Sebring, or do the bumps and the old airfield style not play to your liking?
It's a pretty good racetrack, isn't it, though? You've got plenty of great overtaking opportunities down in towards Turn 7 next to the hotel, and it's in a slightly empty area, but it's a pretty good racetrack with all of that character and history, and it works out pretty well for sports cars. It's why it's so popular. It's why it's got so many long-term fans. And this is the part that's the racetrack.
And built up over some old airfields, opened originally in 1950. Needed something to do with the old airfield post-World War II. The layout in use since 1999. It's tough, it's rough, it's bumpy, and all 17 turns of it certainly have their elements of challenge. It's sometimes narrow, sometimes wide, sometimes the opportunity to get down the inside, sometimes the opportunity for the switchback can present itself. It's got a lot of character, this place, doesn't it, Pete?
Absolutely, Scotty. Thanks for having me tonight. Not my favourite track, but it's one I warm to every year I come back for the 12 hour. And you mentioned that's coming on. So if we have a consideration of the race tonight, we've got 60% fuel tanks, which means the cars are going to be reasonably light for most of the runs, which means their times around the really tighter corners, they're not really going to be suffering from heavy fuel loads. They should be able to get plenty of grip and get fast times around this circuit. Also, it's going to be at least a two-stop pit stop tonight. I don't even think a safety car. It'll take 3 safety cars to bring that to one-stop race. So a two-stop race, likely pit stops around about the sort of 38 to 40-minute mark. If there's a safety car early, that'll extend to about the 43, 45-minute mark. But certainly we're going to have 2 along the way. But yeah, not a favourite track of mine, but one that I do enjoy racing. And with the Sebring 12 hour coming up, which you mentioned, Scotty, it is something that people will have fairly well designed sets for, because it's not just this race. They're probably looking forward to a couple of weeks when they're racing the official big one.
Yep. Where are we off to for the rest of the season? Well, the 13th of April will see us at Monza. That one's going to be a fun one. The last couple of times I've been to Monza, fuel has been a big thing, and lots of green flag running as well. Remember, a huge opportunity that Sam Chapman took to put his name in victory lane in the GT4 series when that was running last year. It'd be wrong to have an endurance series without a trip to Germany and a trip to the Nürburgring, and that will be on the 10th of May. Mugello is going to return to the calendar on the 31st of May. Spa, right in the middle of the year, before we'll finish it up at Suzuka to bring the season home. All there and all part of your Gamer Gear Direct GT3 Open Championship. Dave, well, the lads are out there. They're turning laps already. Is there anyone that just jumps to mind? I mean, we talked about Connor Nixon on the last round, but there was a few drivers that sort of stuck there. He wasn't the actual driver who managed to cross the finish line in first spot.
Yeah, so championship standings there. Connor Nixon, Blake Neck, James Duckworth, Dean Mackay, Ethan Bass, Samuel Sproul, Jackson Dial, Dylan Shepherd, Trent Allen, and Sam Chapman. But I'm sort of looking at the tail end of qualifying here and thinking there's a few drivers not in that top 10 that have looked like they're pretty strong in qualifying. So, I mean, Dylan Shepherd, there's 8th, but it looks like he's been really top in qualifying. Daniel Benefield looks like he's been pretty strong in qualifying as well. And yeah, I think a race like this, just about anything could happen.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things was that we went to Bathurst last time out. Well, the Acura was the strongest car there, but at the time we didn't necessarily really know that. That would take a few extra weeks to sort of play its way out with the official series calendar. The thing about Sebring, though, is that all of a sudden these mid-engine cars do come back to us. I'm thinking Audis, I'm thinking Lamborghinis tend to do quite well around here. The Porsche, again, it's always in contention. It's got great traction. So in terms of the manufacturer war that we'll be having here tonight, there's going to be a fair bit of entertainment said about that. And I think quite interestingly is that Blake Neck was in and around that McLaren, one of the newer cars on the service. And don't forget, I can hear in the background the growl of those Ford Mustangs. And although that Chevy was quite unpopular, it was really difficult to get the tyres into the phase and have the car be consistent for you last season. Well, as time's gone on and everyone's got more and more used to that car, it's started to come forward. That Chevy isn't so much of a difficult prospect in terms of the platform these days.
Yes, now they can take it to the levee, and the levee is no longer dry. So that's positive. You know, as they say, you can lead a Corvette to water, but you can't make it drink. So we'll see how that goes. It's always, you go track to track, weather conditions to weather conditions, and different cars come to the top. You don't want your GT3 cars to all look and feel and behave identical. You want each of them to be competitive with each other, but you want them to look different, feel different, sound different, behave differently at different racetracks. The sun is out, and the Florida sun can be pretty strong, just giving 36 degrees Celsius on the track temperature, and the chance that it could climb a bit further from that as well. So slightly greasier track conditions. I think the concrete's already kind of a low grip surface here as well.
Yeah, definitely a little bit lower grip, and you can very easily push very wide out that last corner. And that last corner at Sebring over the many, many years, not just in GT3s, in everything that goes on, the crisscrosses that can happen out the other side. But do you remember there was a huge moment, and people hate me bringing this up because he was on the other side of the coin. He was in the race control team that night, but I got to call that race. There was a huge moment in V8 supercar racing on the sim that happened here last year, and that shook the championship up right from the very get-go. So Sebring is a track that certainly can bring us a multitude of moments. I can tell you, we are just a few moments away from getting ourselves our pole position lap here for tonight, and with about 10 seconds left in qualifying, and I can tell there's no cars out on the track, so there'll be no adjustments to the times here very late on in the session. You mentioned it, Dylan Shepherd. Well, looks like he's going to take the pole position. I tell you what, Dean Mackay will be livid that he didn't get into the 59s. There's one driver that said a 1 minute 59 here tonight. Dean Mackay is on second place with a 2 minute dead. There is 2 minutes and then 5 zeros next to it.
Yeah, that's it's one of these racetracks where you think a good lap time is just underneath 2 minutes. It's similar to Spa. You're like, okay, GT3 is underneath 2 minutes 5 seconds, good lap time, and that's what the pole sitter Dylan Shepherd has been able to pull out of the bag, at least in the qualifying form. This is on board with that lap.
The only driver we said that into the 1 minute 59, so he was quite deep and managed to get 1 minute 59.890, and again just down the front straight away. Look at the bouncing and the bumping that's going on in a straight line. This is commitment, this is bravery, turning it in, getting as close to the wall as you dare on the left hand side, flow it out, curb on the right, make sure that you carry the pace as much as you're able to, pull it up down here at turn 3, and then back in at turn 4 as well. Use the curb a touch on the right hand side. Got to have a car that's compliant with the curbs as you run down through the big bend and underneath the first of the bridge. The second bridge just after this, you'll get on the anchors as you get into the hairpin on the right hand side. Slowest corner on the track narrows here on the exit, moving back to the left hand side. Probably the premium overtaking opportunity as well. carries good speed as he gets out of turn 7 in the hairpin. On the run down to Cunningham here at turn 10. Back to the left-hand side is Collier. And then the next slow right-hander is going to be Tower before you get onto the back straight.
Yeah, not that slow though. You get the late apex, you get a little bit of camber through there. It's quicker than it looks like it should be, but with that, it's challenging to get it right every time in every lap. And then the track limits become a bit of a thing around here, particularly if you're in a car that doesn't mind leaping across some of the curbs. Now I noticed Shepard's staying off quite a few of them here. There are other cars that will clamber all over it there and slow down penalties and off tracks and stuff that become a thing out there. But it's tidy here. Still just trying to pick up that toe, that little bit of slipstream down back straight here, and then approaching Sunset Bend.
Final corner, watch the line in here. You can sweep and look at the car ahead. It's looking for a little bit better mid-corner and exit speed. Obviously their lap's not supreme at the moment, but he gets back to the gas, uses all of that little bit of banking on the left-hand side, right out of the tyre barriers and back to the stripe to get the lap in. And a little bit of a tough distance for Dylan Shepard as well, helped to get the lap time out of the car. Remember, GT3s can overdo the tyres. That can become a problem as the night progresses. In the meantime, though, time for our starting grid. There were 32 drivers who put a time in here tonight, and Dylan Shepard was the fastest of them all for Blackout OBR. Dean Mackay is the TriStar Racing machine that will line up alongside of him on the front row, just over a tenth of a second further back. Lachlan Capel managed to get a reasonable time together for himself in that McLaren, the Orbit Drop Bear Motorsports machine. He will line up in third spot. Ben Woods will be out of fourth spot, and there was only 0.07 of a second between those two. Still inside the 2/10 marker, Daniel Benefield for 9.5 Sim Sports gets his Porsche a little bit quicker than the Porsche of Stewie Shaw. They will ride up on row number 3. Dan Yeaman finally gets the opportunity to get behind the steering wheel, and we will give him grief to no end because that man always helps out in the comms box wherever he possibly can. He'll be behind the wheel of the Orbit Drop Bear Motorsports Mercedes. Nick Wood in the Entropy Sim Sports car will be alongside of him. Final row inside the top 10, row number 5, the first of the Mustangs for Ethan Bass. We'll line him up alongside of Andrew Scordilis in what appears to be, I believe that's the first of the Acuras. So whilst he might have been quick a couple of weeks ago at Bathurst, it's a little bit more challenging to get the Acura around Sebring. Blake Neck was extremely quick last time out from the mountain. Well, it was this row that actually fought it out for the victory. Connor Nixon will line up alongside of him. Trent Allen and Adam Jepson will make up row number 7 for 13th and 14th on the grid. Mustang and Acura. Row number 7. Mark Hilly and Jackson Dial will make a Porsche and Mercedes. Row number 8. Not much between these two drivers as well. Both of them driving for the same team out of Drop Motorsports as well. Michael Whiting, the first of the Fishy entries, is in the Ferrari alongside of Eli Donaldson's McLaren. Sorry, both McLarens. Sorry, no, my apologies. It was a Ferrari McLaren off of row number 8, and row number 10 is going to be Owen Coleman and Tommy Wallace, their hands.
Yeah, then Russell Pepperell here and Leith McClymont. 21st, 22nd, still within 1 second of pole, so super competitive here. Same's true for Angus Lawford. They're in that Mercedes sitting in 23rd. Blake Delaney, you missed pole by 1 second and you're back in 24th. And Jacob Hughes and Rick Provenzale are here 25th and 26th. And then Adam Burhop and Brad Coates, 27th, 28th on the grid. John McLuhan and Matthew Gerard, 29th and 30th after qualifying. Bobby Camo and Martin Lipsky, 31st, 32nd. And hello to our safety car drivers with the beautiful, gorgeous, irreplaceable Aston Martin Vantage GT4.
Pretty little safety car, isn't it, here for the Game of Gear Direct GT3 Open Championship? Well, a full pacing lap to bring you the coverage. Not a standing start, because whilst we all probably would love the chaos of a standing start, the owners of GT3 hardware and the drivers tend to not enjoy it as much. So,
didn't DTM want it and then have to go away from it? Like they did it for one season, and they were like, "No, this is bad.
Standing starts, man, I love them. You know the bigger thing that I actually really thoroughly enjoy about racing? When it's done right, and it's down to the drivers more than it is anything else, but reverse grids. We need to bring back reverse top 10s or top 15s or something.
Now, Scotty, if you're saying things like that, you're bringing out the narcissist in me. That will really sort of turn around a full-on reverse grid. Hey, listen, boys, I just went and had a chat with a few of the guys in between qualifying and the race tonight. I think the consensus is nobody's really qualified at the pace they thought they might. They've all made little mistakes, and I think, Scotty, that's down to the bumps on the track. I had a quick chat with Owen Coleman. He's one of our PEL previous champions in, what was the limited series, but now he's in the open series, about midway down the pack. Hasn't necessarily got the speed in the corners that he needs. Russ Pepperell, sitting there on his own, he's had a good crack, but he hasn't felt like he's done the practice that he might need. But he reckons he's got a good strategy in the race. So the guys I've talked to, Scotty, nobody's really got a good feel for. They've done an absolute cracking lap. They like where they're at, but it's a long race to go, and it's a 2+. And I'll say that plus with an element of caution in terms of safety car, but for all of them, it's a 2+ strategy for the race. Back to you, boys.
Well, good information to be going in with.
I've done some research of my own.
Oh, here we go.
So DTM went to GT3 and they asked the manufacturers, will you make special higher performance kits for your GT3 cars for DTM? And the manufacturers said no. And then they asked the manufacturers, will you make different clutches for your GT3 cars so we can do standing starts? And the manufacturers said no. And so now DTM does rolling starts with their GT3 cars because absolutely no manufacturer was interested in creating unhomologated GT3 parts to allow DTM to do standing starts.
And what a loss for the world, because could you imagine if that had caught on in DTM and then all of a sudden everyone else started looking at it around the world and went, you know what, that's not a bad idea, let's do some of that.
Like how the World Endurance Championship was going to have LMGT3 Plus kits, and then that did not end up happening. The manufacturers were simply not interested in creating series-specific parts for their GT3 cars and undermine the basis of what makes GT3 good is the homologated cars, the global formula, an Audi R8 that you see here, racing in IMSA or racing in GT World Challenge America. It's the same as you see in Australia, same as you see in Europe, same all over the world. You can take a car from one market to another. You can be familiar with racing one in Australia and then go compete at Le Mans, go compete at the Spa 24-hour. Let's do something unique by undermining what actually makes GT3 good and popular and successful in the first place.
Let's not say good and popular in the first place. Look, I'm going to say here, I do a fair bit of commentating on the GT3. Oh, I'm not a fan. I'm sorry, I'm not a fan. GT3 racing, as much as it is, it's just... It bores me a little bit, whereas the other sort of racing with less driver aids and less driver assists, I think that's where the real fun is. It's where the exciting racing is. And we'll continue that as we get into this one. In the meantime, race start. The field will be in the hands of the Audi, Dylan Shepherd. It's become the unloved stepchild. When it initially launched, it was one of the quicker cars on the platform. It was very difficult to get past the Audi. In the meantime, Dylan Shepherd will have control. He's going to launch the field away. A run down to turn number one. Who's going to be able to get the launch? Capel is looking for a little bit of aggression to the inside of Dean Mackay as he will try and run his way in, and the McLaren on the inside at turn number one gets the car pitched in nicely. Mackay on the outside looking for a little bit of purchase. Benefield's gone and grabbed himself a whole bunch of spots. Look at them as they feed in 3 and 4 wide. Deeper in the field, Jackson Dial, something's happened to him in the background. Finally, Benefield will get that one through. So he's the big winner out of the start. He gains +2, 5th to 3rd. Great launch by him. Watch the Mustangs in the midfield as they cut their way through underneath the bridge for the first time. 2 hours of racing from Sebring and through the Big Bend for the first time, Haynes.
It was a bit of a check-up through the midfield off of that race start. You saw them 5 wide between the concrete walls going across the start-finish line at Sebring here. They seem to have mostly all worked it out by through turn 1. We're back to just 2 wide, gentle and safe through turn 7. But there have been some winners and some losers off of that start. Benefield up into third seems like one of the winners. Yeaman up into fifth, perhaps one of the winners.
Yeah, and he's managed to get himself 2 spots. Loser in the opening stanza was Ben Woods. Big game for Blake Neck, remember, across the finish line first, but post-race penalty relegated him back to second. The previous race at Bathurst has managed to make some pace from that McLaren. He was quick in qualifying back there, didn't quite find it in this one. And meantime, they're setting themselves up, getting themselves into their work, and the big thing will be not over-temperaturing, over-pressuring these tyres in the early phases of the race. Not a cold race, not a hot race, right in the middle, 30 degrees Celsius in terms of track temp at the moment.
You can't park there.
No, you certainly can't. That's very, very wide.
Jacob Hughes, is it, that went all the way back there? It's a few drivers dropping back after some contact there. It's one lap completed, going single file for this group up front, but it has not been necessarily clean sailing for all.
And there's been an incident. The reason that Hughes has ended up out there was actually contact with another car. And we'll get to find out what happened with that one. There's probably a couple of restarts. Here we go. This is exactly what happened for Jacob Hughes. Up and over the curb and gets turned, unfortunately, by the Mercedes who was alongside at that point in time. Tumbling through the order, he goes to last on the road after lap 1.
Yeaman in fifth there in the Mercedes, moving around a little bit. So you go Audi, McLaren, Porsche, Mercedes, Mustang, McLaren. Looks pretty fair up top at the moment. What we're going to look to see, though, is how long they can go on this starting fuel as well. That could get pretty interesting. With the number of stops that we're expecting, fuel economy could be a premium trait to have to your car.
I thought it did see actually Daniel Benefield lifting a little bit on that opening lap, just gliding it in a little bit nicer. Benefit of lifting and coasting is it does actually bring your peak tyre temperatures down as well, so it's also a way that you can look after your car. And to ride on board with not Ethan Bass, that's Dan Yeaman. And he's got the head down, and he is laser focused. You can just see him. Normally he's quite animated when he's sitting back and chilling out and enjoying. But right now he's not. Races out of his shed. That's his place.
Yeah, unfortunately, Grumpy Cat passed away on the 14th of May 2019, so it's good to know that we still have Daniel Yeaman's concentration face on Earth to keep us entertained. Official name Tardar Source, an American internet celebrity cat that unfortunately is no longer with us.
Oh, don't do that to me. I just took a mouthful of the drink that I was... You started that. You got me. You really got me good. That was a good one, Dave. Oh, it's going to be a good night. But yeah, for the meantime, the field does settle into their work. And this little battle is the Acura of Eli Donaldson trying to hold off the 18... Sorry, it's the 18 machine, the McLaren, that's trying to get the move done on the 97 of Owen Coleman, who's going to go ahead and hang on to that one. Both of these drivers are up several spots from where they started. Coleman +6 and Eli Donaldson +4 at the moment. One of the losers on lap 1 was actually Jackson Dial, and I know there was an incident that happened on lap 1. I think it was lap 1, turn 1, with his Mercedes, so I'm sure we'll see if we can find anything that's going on there. In the meantime, just chills out a little bit. Pete Baxter rejoins the commentary box after he's done the sprint up and down the lane. And,
actually, mate, I've just spent I spent the race start in with the race control guys, and I tell you what, there might be a bit of controversy coming out of this race because there were a number of cars. I won't give away any numbers right now. They're going to have a look at it, but there are a number of cars that overtook before the start-finish line. So between the green flag and before the start-finish line. So that's now in the deliberation of the race controllers, and We might see, and I'm not talking one, I reckon we got about half a dozen penalties coming through for people that overtook before the start-finish line on the start, Scotty.
Well, that replay sort of showed it. I think it was Owen Coleman. It was the Acura that shot down the inside, and that's why Dial's a little bit annoyed. But lap 1, turn 1, and he was 4 wide, and he pinched a little bit. And I don't know, Dave. That one seems pretty play on. And that's Owen Coleman's Acura. I remember we said he gained a bunch of spots. Well, that's probably one of the reasons why. Great move around the outside for the number 18 machine of Eli Donaldson to pick it up on the run through turn 1. So he'll grab that one away.
Well, that's where we got the 5 wide from, wasn't it? There was a couple of cars that sort of checked up a little bit to stay in line, and some others that might have passed before the start-finish line, and that's how he sort of got 4 or 5 wide down the front straight on the race start. But then eventually mostly sorted itself out. Tiny gap between the top 4 and 5th place Dan Yeaman.
And radius control just confirming as well that for the contact between car 525 and 200, which was at turn 1, they were 4 wide. That was the one we just saw. No further action, so will be happening. But and this is going to be an interesting one. So we're just waiting. So for further announcement, I'm just hearing that there was some updates for what's coming on. And I think the first one has just been applied, and it will be Jackson Dial for passing before the control line.
Yeah, I reckon there's about half a dozen of them. I think there's about 6 of them coming, Scotty. Jackson's the first one. We'll announce the numbers as they come through, eh?
And the supplementaries too.
Yeah, what was the Powerball, please?
Well, the Powerball is about to come after the safety car restart.
Yeah, the jackpot is a drive-through penalty, unfortunately. And you can see on the timing column the black squares for those that are getting ascribed their drive-through penalties. So Owen Coleman, Jackson Dial, etc. So that takes you off strategy early as well, because it takes you out of this pack where we're seeing a lot of onboards, a lot of just sort of fuel management after the early point. Blake Neck at 7th also getting one.
Now, I had a chat, guys, with the chief steward, and one of the directions he's got from the league is actually to minimise the drive-throughs. But the point here is with something like overtaking before the start-finish line, it's a matter of fact. You can't deny that it hasn't happened. So I think that's where we're seeing the drive-throughs. I think in a lot of race incidents, we might more see time penalties as the night progresses. But for something as straightforward and factual as that, overtaking before a line, which you could just bring up the replay and go, there it is, undeniable, drive-through penalty is absolutely appropriate, and that's what we're seeing tonight. It's going to mix up the race and change the strategy for a few, but we'll see what happens.
Therein lies the differences between league racing and officials. Official racing, not a problem, move on. It's not a penalty. And depending upon the series that you're in, it's not right, it's not wrong. Again, it's just different. It's character to the race, character to the series. That's part of, you read the rule book and apply it as it's said therein, and well, that's been applied. There's a few people that try to take advantage. It's in the book. You can't do that. In the meantime, battling up and down the field, I can tell you there's queues of cars just about everywhere you look. Adam Jepson, I think, has got a queue of cars that are building up in behind him at the moment. You're going to see a few cars will peel off to serve drive-through penalties in the very near future, or they're going to have to peel off to serve drive-through penalties. They're going to start getting disqualified. Is that a touch of damage to the left rear corner of that 65 Porsche?
Yes. Not the only problem going on at the moment, it looks like, for Mark Hilly. But I've got some good news, Scott. If I've got Scott.
The cyclone's gone away?
No, the restaurant at the hotel at Turn 7 has an early bird dining special, steak for two, including a house bottle of wine, red, white, or sparkling, $55. So steak and a bottle of wine for two, $55. Not bad.
Not
Just
bad at
there.
all. Yeah, that might be where we're off to for dinner later on. And
No, it's too late.
worthwhile,
We got to be seated at 5:30. So it's an early bird special.
so we've missed that one this week. Well, that is a bummer. So anyway, we'll have to keep an eye on things as they progress and book ourselves in early the next time we're back. And I do want to pitch to you, Dave. Are we hanging around afterwards to see if we can find Dale and Steve from Sebring?
Oh, I think so. I think we'll have to.
It's got to be a ritual between you and me, isn't it? In the meantime, I'm just keeping an eye on Mark Hilly, who's going toe-to-toe with Leith McClyman as they enter the Le Mans schedule of corners. And that was the black Porsche, was Mark Hilly in the 65 machine. We saw that tiny little bit of damage. We might see an overtake here as they run down the back straightaway into Sunset. Connor Nixon gets to the inside of Stewie Shaw. Hasn't quite completed the pass. Now he will as the door shuts out and on the exit. And Shaw's going to try and carry the momentum down the front straight away and get him back. A touch of overlap as he pokes the nose out. Will lift, will slot back in. And he will elect to save a hair of fuel as much as he possibly can at the moment. An interesting replay. On board with Jackson Dahl, he does.
He's looking for the inside. Okay, no inside over there. And oh. That's a little frustrating that he's got the car down the inside that then parks it a little bit for him. But because there was another car just further up the road, neither of them could go super deep into that braking zone without clearing out the next car. So that led to just a bit of contact.
And no damage to the front end of the number 200 machine that is now driven through the pit lane. So penalties have now been served for that group of drivers. And something just happened on the previous lap as well for car 317. Leith McClyman has received a 10-second penalty for contact with Mark Hilly. And remembering Hilly was the car that we were just talking about with that damage to that left rear corner. So, race continues to develop. This will have an interesting impact on the points too, because at the moment, Blake Next all the way down the bottom, and Connor Nixon's inside the top 10, but not banking a huge deal of points. I think we might actually have a battle for our race lead, because I saw those spots swap a few times, but this is the incident. And up and on the curb, straightens him out, at least, and carries on with it.
Shepherd with this race lead, just looking to be managing it at the moment. Lachlan Capel's got the fastest lap of the race, but Benefield and Mackay are just in behind there as well. And there's no appearance of breakaway or taking a massive lead away for Dylan Shepherd here.
So, boys, I just come back from a chat with Dylan Shepherd and Ben Woods. Obviously P1 for Dylan and currently P6 for Ben. They're going pretty well. They're pretty happy with their qualifying and they're happy with their setups in their cars. Dylan is thinking right now that he's worried about burning too much fuel while he's out the front, and he knows that Lockie Capel is somebody who can actually save fuel while pulling a bit of pressure on. So a little bit of things to think about for Dylan. Both of the guys are still pretty comfortable with where they're at for the race. And not changing the strategy on where they're at. I asked them about the start and Dylan in particular, who was at the start, where he went a little bit later than most of the people at the back, which is why we saw some of those penalties come through. But as far as Dylan was concerned, he was at the start, controlling the pace, and it was all about him getting through turn one in the front, and he achieved that. So all good from that perspective.
And I'll do some research and I'll be right back. I'm off to go investigate the the Drop Bear Motorsports crew, and I'll rejoin you guys in a few moments. There you go, Pete. I've got access to a team you don't, so I'll be right back.
He says that, but he might be off to investigate the breakfast buffet at the hotel. You can get buy one, get one free on the breakfast buffet at the hotel at turn 7. Yep, buy one, get one free on Porsche 911 GT3Rs apparently, because they are just all together in an all Porsche fight in this part of the field. We've seen a little bit of contact exchanged. You've got to love the Herbie livery for 20th place. Jean McLuhan here as well, heading down the back straight towards Sunset Bend.
No, mate, and it looks like a fairly heavy Porsche race, but what we've seen in GT3 category in iRacing lately is the Acura's been the car to go for, but it looks like here we're like Audi leading, McLaren second, Porsche, Mercedes, Ford, Acura. So really good balance up there in the top 7 or 8 cars. It means that I think everybody's coming to terms with the car that they really like. And, and of course in this series, if you change your car for this series, it's a DQ for the race and a rear grid start for the next race. So you really want to be, considerate about whether you want to change your car or not, just to get your name up in lights for a single race. So I think, any change of car is going to take it out for the championship. And maybe we're not seeing the strongest car for Sebring, but, let me put that another way. Maybe we're not seeing the strongest car for the championship, but we're seeing the strongest car at Sebring in the Audi.
Moving throughout the field, checking on the battles, still in the first into the race before anyone's really reached the first of their pit stops for this 2-hour endurance race at Sebring. Taking a look here, turn 7. Absolutely the key overtaking opportunity. You got a lot of speed down the front straight, but it's not into a big braking zone at turn 1. You got a lot of speed down the back straight, but it's not a big braking zone for these cars into Sunset Bend. There at turn 7 is the hardest stop on the lap, therefore probably the best case to make a move and try to get some positions up.
Yeah, and just went for that walk across to see what I could find from the Drop Bear guys. Jackson's a little bit hot under the collar. Apparently that's not too uncommon for Jackson, tends to drive that way, but do quite well at it. Everyone in that front group is fuel saving. As evidenced by Capel, that's drama at the back end of the field. And the Mercedes of Blake Delaney and the BMW of Adam Burhop have found themselves, that is going to be a safety car. There is no way he crawls that back to the pits. Oh, he's going to try.
That. Yeah, I mean, left rear is hanging all the way out of that Mercedes. The other 3 corners look okay, but we're going to see how that ended up there with such significant damage to the drive wheels.
Yeah, and side by side with Burhop, and remember both of these cars did end up off the road down here. Gets across the curbing, and there was still a car on the left-hand side. Gee whiz, he's found the wall quite hard.
Oh, that wasn't the incident, Scotty. That was the contact with concrete. Cars and concrete don't go together that much, and that was a good proof that it doesn't. But, it looked like a bit of a racing incident to me. But, the damage at the end of it was just massive.
And I can tell you that we're about to lose a driver as well. Jackson Dials just had a power surge, lost all screens and inputs. So we might be losing a driver. Request to tow has been invoiced to race control, and Blake Delaney has been given permission to tow. So no safety car here. 20 minutes into the 2-hour affair of the Open Gamer Gear Direct Endurance Challenge from Sebring. Meantime, top 5 cars, no one's going anywhere, no one's falling back. And I think the curious thing about this, and probably the thing that everyone would be liking to see, Audi, McLaren, Porsche, Mercedes. 4 manufacturers represented in that top 5.
Don't forget the Mustang in 6th. You simply can't. I mean,
it lets you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It lets you know.
It lets you know that it's on its way past. The growl of it's insane. And then the Acura back in 7th. So 6 manufacturers in the top 7. Only 1 repeat. And
well, it doesn't sound like Jackson Dial is really going to serve that drive-through penalty based on what you were telling us earlier. So, but there it is, nonetheless. Still lots of rain falling on southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales and whatever else is going on out there.
I think this front pack, you're just going to see these guys stay together for the bulk of the race. There's probably not going to be too much moving and shaking because they're all... And keep an eye on things. In the meantime, Blake Neck on the recovery effort.
Yeah, served that drive-through penalty. What he did was he waited a couple of laps to serve it because he was hoping to not get tangled up as deep in the field as he has. So you wonder exactly how many cars he's avoided by taking that late serve of the drive-through penalty. But nonetheless, this is where it's got him at the moment, in behind our favourite group of battling Porsches. It's got just one or two cars off the end, and I miss the old McLaren at times like this.
And still
in the
the
words
heat.
of Sebastian Vettel, bring back the barbecue.
Race of Champions on across the weekend, of course, as well, which has been interesting to keep half an eye on. And there was actually a few sim races in operation that were getting the opportunity to get into some machinery. They had a challenge that saw them out and driving, and several of them doing well enough to actually beat some of the drivers that were there in attendance, which was phenomenal to see as well. That's always the challenge, isn't it? How much of the skills do you think are going to cross over to the real world? I always say that you learn a lot.
More for that sort of stadium stuff than for the big tracks, and it does cross over for the big tracks. I reckon if you want a motorsport format where the raw car feel and aggression comes across, it's probably that sort of stuff where they're doing 40k an hour handbrake turns around little bollards and through the center of the stadium.
Yeah,
I think your first time up Eau Rouge Radion would separate the real races from the sim races for a little bit.
Yeah, that would be the point where you would absolutely go, yep, I'm definitely going to be able to do this, or no, I think I'm going to go back to the virtual stuff very, very quickly. And Russell Pepperell already through the pit box, grabs himself a top up on fuel and gets back out there. I think he was looking for a little bit of clear air, and he's now found that. And again, that front pack, it's just not really going anywhere. I was just watching couple laps of Blake Neck. I think he's probably going to be the driver that's going to be on the move that's worthwhile keeping an eye on, because he is still cutting his way through. He's got up to 21st spot, made 2 overtakes on the current lap. Oh, sorry, 1 overtake on the current lap, and Russell Pepperell pitting from ahead of him as well. So, at the moment, ranging up on the back of Bobby Camo in the Porsche. You can just see he's just got so much more grip. The car is just significantly more able to rotate through the Le Mans bends and onto the back straight. And gets to the outside to take the wider turn-in point. See if he can get the crossover and get the drive down the front straight away. Turns the car back in nicely. Back to the throttle a little bit earlier. Gets the drive off the corner. Not quite able to close in and get the job done.
Turn 1, a little bit of inside. Really shallow entry there makes it difficult to then pick up your reference marker and carry speed out of the corner. There is so much space on the inside if you want to go for it. And Blake Neck is moving forward. Moving back forward, it must be said.
So, Jets, I checked in with Russ Pepperell. He's on strategy. It was one of his various strategies that he had for the race tonight. Earlier pit stop, felt like he's being held up in traffic, so thought he'd come in, take a pit stop and see if he can undercut a few cars while he's out early.
Adam Burhop's back out as well after that incident, and he's going to try and make up some time. Pepperell certainly made some time. Owen Coleman did do his drive-through, which is why he's a long way back at the moment. But in the meantime, track temp dipped a little bit. and looks to be a relatively overcast yet fine afternoon. None of this wild and woolly cyclone stuff that the three of us are going through here in the Comms Box.
Not that Florida is, immune or unfamiliar with a little bit of wind, rain, and weather, but it's nice at the moment. So it's that if you're looking to make this a 2-stop, you've got to get to 1 hour 20 to go on the clock, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
sure.
absolutely, mate. The 60% fuel tank sort of puts you in that 38 to 42 minute mark for your fuel stop. And if you're not thinking about that the whole race, you are, and if it's a green flag, you are risking the potential of a third pit stop. And that's the equivalent of a drive-through, right? So, if it's green the whole way, we've already seen one car have a crash and it was parked relatively close to the track, and race control made the call to play on and not bring out the safety car. So, I think after that, the potential, unless we got seeing the car crashed and on the track, I think we might be seeing, it's a high chance here we're going to get a green flag race, and drivers are going to have to think about fuel strategy all the way along.
Updates Adam Burhop will have a 25-second penalty for the back end of the race for the contact that has unfortunately ruled Blake Delaney out of this one. Not able to get back out there at this point in time either is Delaney. Faster Prairie is on offer to the drivers, wanting to see everyone try and make the flag where possible. But the feeling Delaney's not going to be. Also worth noting, across the top 5, we talked about 4 manufacturers in the top 5, 5 different teams across the top 5 as well. So each of them bring an approach to setup, different approach to cars and manufacturers. Blackout OPR currently leads the way from Lachlan Capel's correctly renamed Evolution Racing team. Daniel Benefield driving for 9.5 Sim Sports. And Dean Mackay's TriStar Racing Machine. And then back to Dan Yeaman for the Drop Bear Motorsports Machine.
Well, there we go. Go crack the little smile there.
And by the way, he has friends watching and listening in, so I can guarantee in about 5 or 10 seconds he's going to find out that he's been looked at yet again. And they will mob him mercilessly over in the Drop Bear Discord.
Give us a shuckers, Yeaman.
He knows about it. Oh.
Oh, we'll take that. We'll take that. He's dropping a tiny bit away from the top 4, but we'll know that if he's on target to make that fuel, you'd drop a couple seconds away from the race lead if it meant hitting a fuel target. And so we'll see if the Mercedes is doing as well as the other marks in the other cars in front. Right now, first half of the race, just keep an eye on your fuel consumption, when your pit stop time is going to be, hit your strategy, and then the track position and the rest and the pace will sort of come to you if you've worked out that part.
That little lapse in break and concentration, who the biggest fan of us staying on Dan Yeaman's camera will be. It'll be Ben Woodson behind, because he's pulled off a fair bit of time this lap, although it looks like there might have been a mistake for Dan Yeaman in the first sector. That has dropped him away from that little pack ahead. Most time lost to everyone around him was actually back in the first sector. So,
come on, Scotty, let's be fair, mate. The mistake to Dan Yeaman was you guys poking at him whilst he's driving on his bloody seam feed. So, let's be fair to Dan. That's pretty damn hard stuff to do, maintain your concentration while listening to 2 or 3 bullheads actually talk about looking at you on the Zoom feed.
I accept no culpability.
No, yep. We're not going to talk about previous times I've been on camera and in the sim at the same time.
I'm not talking about you, Scotty. I'm talking about Dan. Dan's a different beast than you are. I understand that you are an extra special person in so many ways, shapes, and forms. But
Stop now.
right now we're talking about a driver who's out there driving. He's got his concentration head on, trying to keep up with people in front of him. He's currently P5 out of 30 odd dudes in a very, very tough field, and you're poking fun of him, Monsoon. So get out there, Dan. Shut ranking out and just focus on your race, buddy.
A little bit of touch and contact between the teammates as well, so it was a touch more awkward than it needed to be for Leith McConnett and Brad Coates. And there was a ton of smoke back at turn 1 on that lap, and I just wonder whether or not there was something that did happen. But
I mean, there could be a ton of smoke if someone just runs a bit wide. So we've seen that sometimes, that you could run wide and kick up some stuff, or if you spin, the tyre smoke in the air would let you know. This is dropping and changing for the pace up front here as well. Shepard's kept the pace up, but I think Capel and Yeaman have both deliberately started to drop their pace back a little bit.
And Shepard's starting to press on and see if he can't break the toe. Tell you what, he's nearly out to that second margin, the lead, and by our timing, he is out to that marker, so he'll still be offering a touch of toe to the McLaren in behind. Capel's going to try and close on the run down the back straightaway. Audi not known for its straight line speed. Has been able to make some time back. In the meantime, Ethan Bass is getting closer in the Mustang war with Nick Wood. This for the last spot inside the top 10. Another car's going to dive to pit lane. Andrew Scordillis is in. Stuart Shaw is in. These two are in at 32 minutes into the race. So they are committing to not being able to make it on fuel.
And Dylan Shepard's picked up the pace there as well. Obviously, the car's running a lot lighter now towards the end of the stint, but he's just gone and taken the fastest lap of the race. So he's seen the little gap he's got to Lachlan Capel. Shepard's putting the hammer down. A few of the others are maybe trying to do a tiny bit of management at the moment as well. And so, yeah, we'll see who goes to that sort of hour 20. You're looking to go 3 laps longer from where they are right now. And you're seeing that might be a real challenge with a whole bunch of other drivers pitting right now.
Yeah, I think in the PL series, this is probably one of the first races that we've seen go up to that 40-minute mark without a safety car led. So, you know, every other race that we've had with a 60% fuel tank, we've had a pretty early safety car, and consequently the cars are made that sort of, 40, 42-minute plus mark, which gets them to that critical 1 hour 20. We're seeing all green so far, and I think that's going to put all of the drivers, unless they're fuel savvy all the way through this whole race, into at least a splash and dash situation without a safety car saving them.
Well, they're going to play fuel chicken, at least for the next little while. Starting to be a big margin built. Probably about half the field now has pitted. She says that I think this lap is probably going to be the critical one for a bunch of these teams. If some of them could only go on 32 laps, it's really interesting that some of them went 32 minutes, and yeah, the whole group's not going to make it any further than that. Benefield makes a whole bunch of time on the pit lane entry. No one picks up a black flag for a pit lane speeding infringement. And that now the games will get played. Does anyone elect to not add a full tank of fuel here to try and grab some track position?
Or does anyone not change tyres, Scotty, and stay on hot tyres?
Not that we're seeing so far. Not that this has drifted into a perfect angle. There we go. But everyone else you saw, they went in. Car went up on the jacks. Dylan Shepard, as the pole sitters, got the pit stall all the way to the pit exit end.
So people changing at least 2 tyres, and you do a minimum of 2 tyres. You don't do 1 tyre, because if a car's going up on the jacks like that.
Who's missing their bonnet back there? Sorry, one of the Mercs missing its grille that just got put back on.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to keep an eye on. Was it potentially the 22 machine?
No, they were just entering the lane as the leaders were leaving, so a bit further back, so more like 30 seconds behind the leaders, something like that.
I can tell you Angus Lawford in the 52 machine. It was. So, and it's just the front end of the car. You're right, grille. Splitter's still attached to the car. So, yeah, odd one for him. Replay is going to come and tell us what's going on there. I think it might have been from very, very early on in the race. He's been missing it. Yeah, he's been missing it since the first lap, boys. So that's something that happened on lap 1. So, exiting the pit lane. Dan Yeaman is a touch close to Bedwoods. And this battle will continue on. That might be a difference in hot versus cold tyres right there. Yeah, it was the car that went around on lap 1. And the car that tripped over him was the 52 machine. So remember this all the way back from lap 1. That solves the questions that we're asking from the outside the turn-in point. And it's that contact there that's done the damage.
Bye-bye.
It was nearly like a couple of plastic clips failed, was the look of it, wasn't it?
Yeah, doing its best Mustang GT3 impression.
Civilians beware. And in the meantime, Mustang is the car to talk about. There's more battling going on down the front straight for Trent Allen and Eli Donaldson. And it's going to continue. Sorry, it is Trent Allen and Eli Donaldson. Donaldson in the McLaren trying to go the long way round down here at turn 4. Still got the nose in. Forces Donaldson to go a touch narrow before they'll come back out onto the back straight. And they'll single file out once again. Donaldson tried to carry the momentum. He is right up and underneath that rear splitter. It's going to force the cover all the way to the inside. And try and go the long way around at the hairpin. If he gets on the marbles out around the outside, he'll have no grip. Wasn't quite able to apply the drive. Wasn't able to pull the car up. But now he's going to try. He got the drive out the other side. He will still be on the outside when we get to the next braking zone. But finally gets the nose in. Will pull alongside as they come through the kinks. To Cunningham. And he's further up and alongside. It's going to be the outside, the bulk of the way through this section. Next left-hander, he'll finally get a touch to the inside. But he just can't carry the momentum. They still go side by side. Allen's not giving it in. Now to Tower. And the run onto the back straight away. Does he quite get the job done? Yes, Trent Allen will finally lock that one back in. For now.
Yeah, we just saw an example that going around the outside of Cunningham, going around the outside of turn 7. Difficult to do. Oh, okay.
Oh, there's a touch up.
Surprised that splitter stayed on the Ford Mustang.
Donaldson might be a touch hot underneath the collar. I tell you what, I tell you who's just dropped out in behind these guys as well, is that's Russell Pepperell. So that has worked out a little bit well for him, but he's 10 seconds lighter on fuel compared to most of these guys. He's going to have to bill to pay later on.
Hey lads, I've just come back from having a chat with Dylan Shepherd and Ben Woods. P1 and P6 still. They are certainly on track with the fuel burn as expected. Thoughts in the team is that without a safety car there is going to be a splash and dash, but it's not just for them, it's for everybody. They were very well aware that they were in the second group to come into the pits, and everybody in the top half of the field was with them. So there's no illusions, and I don't think anybody's really hiding anything from each other tonight. Nobody's being able to save any sorts of amount of fuel that might be able to come up with a surprise at this stage. Given the pace, nobody's slowing down to be able to pull a funky trick at the end of the race, unless the safety car comes out in, I guess, the next sort of 40 minutes, boys.
That's what we're sitting and watching for at the moment. We've just passed the marker to get home for a 2-stop. No one was able to go that distance. Remember, all of them only went about 34 minutes. Shepherd very wide coming onto the back straightaway, and that might be the first in that Lachlan Capel's likely to get, but he's just not quite close enough to take advantage down the back straightaway.
Yeah, so Shepherd's got the pace, and he had that little bit of a lead, but it's sort of for a little bit of nothing at the end here, because he's just got this group 3/10 off his tail. He's not shaking Lachlan Capel. He's not shaking Daniel Benefield. There's a chance they shake Dean Mackay. Have kind of shook Dan Yeaman just a little bit. He's fighting back there with Ben Woods. It's going to be a long day of looking in his mirrors, I think, for Dylan Shepherd, at least for the next little while.
So how did he end up out there and on the grass on the run onto the back straightaway? Missed the apex just a fraction. That's the final turn. Turn 16, coming off on Mons chicane. But just listening to a bunch of these guys, and they are continuing to say, first lap traffic of the night's coming up too, which will be Martin Lipsky.
Now, if I remember rightly, Scotty, Martin copped a bit of criticism for some of his management of blue flags in the last race, so it might be interesting to see how he copes tonight.
These guys are coming at him rather quickly as well. He's dived out of the first couple's way. Benefield's going to get to the inside. Mackay, they all skip through very quickly. So he hasn't caused a break in that train, which was good.
So let's give credit where credit's due, mate, and shout out. You know, we were, if I remember rightly, we were pretty heavily critical on blue flags at Bathurst, but let's give credit where credit's due. That was decent driving from a lap car there, and it hasn't upset the race at all.
No, hasn't impacted anything at all. And there they all go. Four of them all line him up. Makes it pretty clear what he's doing, and they all get the picture too.
So this is where I need a wild card, right? So I can be out there with Martin. We can both drive around and do blue flags together.
You deserve a night in the race car. What's happened? Bobby Camo has ended him up in that complex that leads onto the back straight. Somehow the 747 has gone awry. And Hilly was just on the radio to report something in as well. So contact directly front to nose. That'll be probably not viewed too highly.
Yeah, I mean, they're both so close going through that part, and then you go left and you're trying to slow the car down a little bit to take the change of direction to the right. So I can see how that happens innocently. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, it needs a few more angles, I think, to tell more of a story. Whether or not the car was unsettled over the curbs could be a factor in that one. But could be also two drivers of very different paces coming at each other in it was a difficult circuit to get along, difficult section of the circuit to get alongside. That looks a lot better from Dylan Shepherd. A lot more apex made right there. This is the onboard from Hilly. He closes a touch there. And Camo's just out of the gas straight away, but I don't know if he was unsettled, but he didn't look it.
You'd want to go look at Camo's pace and his speeds compared to the lap previous there, honestly. Like, it is odd how quickly Hilly closes.
And that's what I'm saying. It's just you'd want to think.
You'd have to go look at a lap or two laps previously to be able to have the full the full information. You couldn't just look at that 5 seconds and know if Hilly's just driven up the back of him there, which is possible. Maybe that's what happened, but there's also a touch of, was the car in front predictable, doing what it did the lap previous? Was it sort of, off pace? Myself and Reese Gardner dove way too deep into that sort of stuff last weekend. So it's still front of mind for me.
It is important, though, from a racing perspective, that you are not just consistent, but on pace. If you're fuel saving massively, you're not predictable. But that didn't look like that. That just, the curbing is the big key for me in that one. Car definitely did look a little bit off kilter. But anyway, we digress, and we get back into the racing action. Again, this pack is just not, there's not much that's going to happen up here. Everyone's trying to make their fuel number right now.
Fueled by Astro Energy, but only 60% of one tonight. That's the fuel cap.
Is there much difference in the way the two Porsches are driving? Not necessarily. Pretty much all 4 of those cars are driving pretty rhythmically at the moment. And you just see the bumps, the jarring just everywhere. Jump, 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 jump. You can hear it in the engine notes sometimes as well. So the rear tyres get a little bit of air. You compress and load up again. Such as the racing at Sebring. I think I can hear Lewis Hamilton complaining about his back already.
What, because he's going to have to carry Ferrari strategy this season?
Oh boy. I mean, at least I'll have a... Whoa! What's going on out here?
Well, it's between turns 4 and 5. Has Adam Jepson had some contact? Has he had a nasty ride across some of the curbs? Some of the tallest curbs around the track are there at turns 3, 4, and 5. I've done just a tiny bit of off-roading around here before. 3. Oh.
That's a hardware failure. That's a monitor going black.
Look how early the brake lights come on in that as well. So something's... He's had a weird something, but then gotten going pretty quickly. So it doesn't immediately look like driver error. It looks like maybe his brake pedal's stuck down or something. So it's normal until about here. It's like he goes to turn right and it doesn't turn right. And the steering's locked left.
But it's not hard lock left though. It's only like a slight left hand down. It looks, I'm going to be honest, Dan, it looks like monitor failure. Honest to God, I think it might be a monitor failure of some description, or he's lost a picture for just a few moments.
No, I'll tell you what I call it. I'll call that computer freeze or graphics freeze, Scotty.
Because everything's still functioning.
His controls are functioning, but he's just had a graphics freeze and gone straight ahead. Because we've seen hardware failure, and hardware failure is really clear, right? Cars go really hard left, really hard right, do something out of the ordinary. That's like he's just had a black curtain put across his eyes for 5 seconds or so, and then it's come back on.
Yeah, and not one of the best places on the circuit for it to happen too. If that had happened in the middle of the back straight, it would have been okay, but not to be the case. And again, it's just not much happening at the front at the moment. Everyone's just chilling because they can't really do too much. I'm pretty sure every single one of these 4 teams up here took tyres at that first stop, so they're all even kilter on tyre life at the moment as well. We reckon it's going to be another tyre stop for all 4 tyres at the next pit stop, Pete?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. I know. Well, we know that the full green flag, they've got to do a splash and dash as well. So I think they're going to drive these things until they're empty, and when they're empty, they can cover a set of tyres. So you get one more set of tyres for the rest of the race. You're certainly not going to do a set of tyres for a splash and dash, but if you're going to do a fuel tank, you might as well do a set of freshies and go from there. And we saw that positions didn't really change, and everybody changed tyres. So I don't think it's going to make a big of a difference. Yeah, interestingly, having seen the development updates for the GTP and what it's going to do with green tyres on those cars, I'm going to see, if cold tyres on GT3 and supercars in the future become just as much difficult. What do you reckon, Scotty?
Yeah, it could be a completely different formula. Everything could be just incredibly different. I think the biggest thing is tyres that actually take time to warm up. And as much as the amateurs amongst us and the bulk of the sim racing community fits into that category, as much as that presents an element of difficulty for us when we've had it too good for too long, it could be my honest opinion on that, Dave. I mean, where do you stand on that? The announcements that come out today, there was a lot said by the iRacing stuff that, hey, it's going to be tough to drive these things on cold tyres. That's normal, though. That's what you need to expect.
Yeah, GTPs are a different sort of construction of tyre though for these, because when you've got a car that is sort of relatively lightweight but high downforce, then you need a really, really strong sidewall for withstanding those loads when the tyre is at peak grip and the car's at peak downforce. And, you're going up Eau Rouge Radion flat out at 280 k's an hour. The tyre's got to be really strong for those situations. What that means is the tyre doesn't move around as much when it's, cold and at the slower speeds, and it's more difficult to get it warmed up. GT3 tyres don't have quite the same issue because they don't experience quite the same peak load. And then the same's true of supercars and all those others. So there's a reason that the real world GTP tyres look so brutal to warm up from cold, and it's because of where the peak of their required stiffness and grip is, and therefore at the lower speeds when they're not there yet, they don't deflate, roll around. They're too stiff when they're cold.
I'll tell you this, Scotty. I think Dave's pretty spot on, but. About 12 months ago, I think about 4 updates ago, the GT3 model got updated, and the first lap was critical. The GT3 tyre was not as grippy as when it was hot, and it took sort of half a lap, 3/4 lap to get it up to pace. We're going to now see that exaggerated on the GTP cars. So we've sort of had that model in the GT3 for a while. The other thing is, leading into the Sebring 12 hour that's coming up, for those that are going to drive the hypercars, is do you now decide to keep a set of tyres on rather than change them, even though you can change it within the time of a fuel tank? Because if your tyres are good for another stint and they're say got 75% or better still on them, they're still going to be good for another 30 laps or so. Do you even change them? So it might bring back double stinting, triple stinting tyres into endurance racing, which I think would be super exciting.
I want to actually cast your mind back to 12 months ago, Pete, and for those of you watching along at home, and the reason I'm going to do this is 12 months ago, rain was introduced at this very location to iRacing, so we've had it for 12 months, and I'm going to have to cut that short because we've just lost Owen Coleman for some reason. He is requesting a tow, and that is an Acura that is bent, an Acura that is in the fence, and an Acura that is going nowhere. And the VTEC still yet to kick in for Owen Coleman.
So I'm trying
to being granted. So
picture where that is.
No, that's after
turn 1.
Between turn 1 and 2. Yep. So it looks like he's just missed turn 1. He's just there might have something earlier than turn. There we go. Yep.
So Matt's coming in.
Gets a bit of a slide on the way in. He's wide, perhaps in some marbles.
Yep.
I think he's just ended up tiny bit wide, little slide, lots of marbles, grip's gone, and it snaps into the wall on the left. He's done some damage, thought he could maybe carry on, but in the end, hasn't.
No, damage the front left. You can see after that contact with the wall, the front left is pointing too far to the left, and therefore he's lost all the ability to turn in turn one, hit the wall again, and then come across track. Yeah.
I was looking back at that shot and going, where the flaming heck is that? And it's the inside of the exit of turn one. That's why, because it's very, very rare that you see a car in that location, but that's how it's ended up there. Overtakes in this little group, by the way. Trent Allen did get by Eli Donaldson at the back end of the group again. So those two guys still going at each other. And it's a little bit of a team sandwich at the moment because Nick Wood and Eli Donaldson are the bookends of this little pack, teammates, with the Revolution AITT cars of Stuart Shaw and Trent Allen in the middle. Stewie Shaw, though, qualified quite well. He was 6th at the start of this one. He is back to 11th, so it's not going well for him at the moment. He's trying to advance his position as he gets down to the inside on the run into Tower and gets the job done out the other side. So he moves himself back inside the top 10.
Shaw had one of the fractionally quicker stops of everyone for the first stops as well. So I was just sort of 1 second difference here or there, you know, maybe depending on exactly how cleanly you stop in the pit box, exactly, you know, how much fuel you need. So his stop wasn't so bad the first time around.
In the meantime, though, Trent Allen's picked up a hefty draft and he's going to have a crack at him. Leeds come back down a fair way as well. Allen's going to get to the inside of Nick Wood and gets that job done on the corner entry of the final turn. Big slide out the other side, though, for Nick Wood. And live shots on the bottom is your lead group as they've tidied themselves back up again. Russell Pepperell's also just dived to the lane for his second stop, and the crisscross. Nick Wood's going to get to the back of Trent Allen, will get the nudge on. Donaldson's trying to line up and have a go at the pair of them, and Nick Wood is going to slide it back down the inside. Allen will go back one spot more. So not decided this one, and this was after Nick Wood had a big old slide. Now he's out in the marbles. They'll get contact again. Both sliding the Mustangs. Has that given the room for the McLaren to slice his way on through? Stewie Shaw's made a master stroke of this. He skipped a little bit clear at the front of the group, and now they're banging panels as they run down the straightaway. Donaldson's trying to squeeze him to the inside. Allen's going to keep the nose in. And you know what? I don't think if he squeezed him, he would have done that. Little bit of banging doors. Allen will get it back. And
it was a bit too touring cars trying to move the other guy further towards the inside when you've already got a car width there on the racing line, and obviously hand to hand the Mustang is not going to give way, is it?
no, and there's another car that is now in the wars and in the walls, and it's the outside of turn one this time for Matt Gerard. The race control's having a look at it at the moment, so we'll get an update on that. And Matt Gerard's race might necessarily be over. There's a tyre. And he's moved across to the right. Bang! Takes the wall with him. Pit lane at wall there as well, so odd place to pick that up, but that wall's not perfectly straight in that area, and race control will be having a look at that battle.
A little bit too much right-hand drive. A little bit too much right-hand driving a left-hand drive car.
A little bit difficult sometimes to cut that corner, but this battle's continued on. There's more between Trent Allen and Eli Donaldson. Again, just down the marbles. Those marbles are starting to build up offline here, boys. Lots of marbles.
That's going to change somewhat as well.
Yep.
Well, I think there's talk of asking iRacing to change it, but you know, there's plenty of evidence that there are pretty heavy marbles on some tracks, and you know, it's very, very tyre compound and race car dependent. So maybe iRacing just need to adjust the model subtly. I think they're going to back it off a little bit. You know, we shouldn't have Formula One type marbling in MX5 events, if you know what I mean. So that's the extreme. And I think right now we've got the same level of marbling across the whole field. So there maybe just need to be some adjustment depending on the combinations that we find. But I think in the new season build, we're going to see some local debris flags for when that sort of marbling that is kind of extreme. So that might be good. I'm not sure how that will apply to whether we can do anything with race control for it. It kind of might be like the local yellow flag that just comes up in the driver's vision, something to be aware of an individual driver, but not something you can control a race with.
And again, 4 cars covered by very little.
Look at how much tread's still left on those tires in the runoff. They should still be on someone's car. What are they doing? What are they doing here? Those are good. In fact, those are probably. I've seen cars in Florida with balder tires than that.
Do you want a set of white wall tires? Are you going to cruise America white? Because it's still rock and roll to me.
Yep, beautiful.
That's not all the lyrics, but that's the ones that I can think of off the top of my head.
No, I want the blue ones. Give me some of the blue ones.
Ooh. So lap 29. So there was a couple of elements to the little battle between Trent Allen and Eli Donaldson. And the first element's been looked at. And Trent Allen's been issued 5 seconds to be added to his post-race time for just being a touch to... so ignore that on-screen graphic with the 18 machine. That's actually incorrect. The correct penalty has been applied to the 27 of Trent Allen, not the 18 of Eli Donaldson.
No, that's right, Scotty. And if you have a look at that incident carefully, car number 27 didn't quite leave enough room for the number 18 to stay on track. After the hairpin turn, there's just a little jink, a little chicane that comes in to the right and then back out to the left. And you've got to be wise enough if you're going to go side by side there to make sure that the other car's got some racing room. And both cars went off the track and into the dirt, and therefore 27 was held accountable for that.
That's the big key. Loom was required to be left in those circumstances. It doesn't resolve the battle out on track, though, because Donaldson's still going to try and find a way past if he thinks that he can go ahead and track these guys down. And that is the perfect little... They both got in hot, was the big key. They were both trying to outbrake the other. They both got wide. They both picked up the marbles. They both ran wide. But Trent Allen was required to leave racing room.
And it's interesting. I talk about racing room with a lot of drivers, pre and post races when I do some of my race control, Scotty. A lot of drivers just seem to think racing line is the only line, but what they forget is that the sporting and fair competition of this all is both cars need to be able to race on the track, and you've got to fight for position fairly. And both cars have got to give each other enough racetrack to be able to fight for it and rightfully get in front of the other. So just going on the pure racing lane is good when you're one car only, but as soon as you're 2 cars side by side, it's almost slot car-like, right? And you've got to make sure that the other car gets that track room to be able to compete fairly. And you've got to come out of a corner faster than them, or you've got to find that overlap, you've got to find that advantage that puts you in front of them before you get back onto that single racing line. And it's something that some drivers don't understand until you actually talk them through that.
Yep. And I'm just sitting here and I'm just thinking, second round of pit stops, Bobby Camo has dropped into the pits for his second stop. There'll be a few more drivers that are in that same boat as run down the back straight away. They are race leaders. It might not necessarily... I think half the field's going to be in this time by, and I think the other half will be in next time by.
Yeah, I think these leaders did 18 laps in the first stint, and they're only 14, 15 through the second stint. So a couple more laps, certainly for Shepherd, Capel, Benefield here, but there's a few others that stopped sort of 2 laps before the leaders last time around that we expect to see about now.
Andrew Scordilis is in, as is Ethan Bass. Both looking to try and take some advantage. Trent Allen will join them. As the pit lane buzzes into a hive of activity yet again.
Now, out of those pitters, Ethan Bass had a 3-second shorter pit stop than everybody else in that first round of pit stops. So we might see him drop a couple of spots relative in this cycle. But we'll see how it goes.
Do you think it's worthwhile taking a few extra litres worth of fuel to try and unload the car a little bit and protect the tyre and necessarily just as well have that actual pace on hand to use?
At 60% fuel tank, I think it's a no-brainer to fill it. I think if the allowance was 100% fuel tank, we wouldn't be seeing this many pit stops, but you'd be able to think about sort of short filling. But I think 60%, it's a light tank anyway, to be honest. And you're not really going to gain much because essentially once you do maybe 3 or 4 laps, you're going to be in that sort of 50% or lower. Oh, back to you. There's some action. Yep.
Oh, here we go. And now they're finally going to start changing hands, and Capel's lost a spot here. Daniel Benefield is going to finally cut his way through. And that might be a turning up of the wick as the fuel save strategies and the fuel save games have been playing the way out over the last few laps. Now Capel's going to park it back down the inside, and the thing will be, who's coming to pit lane on this lap? Because if they're all coming to pit lane on this lap, they all need to get single filed out. No, crisscross style racing now employed by Benefield. As he tries to get the run back down the main straight, Capel's forced to cover. So live and let live, Chris and crisscross.
Yeah, it's definition of good racing though, Scotty, mate. If you can go side by side and allow and accept that somebody's going to overlap, you drop one spot, but you're then racing, you get to come back at them in another corner and get to have a go in another lap. Lockie Capel now knows where Benefield's going to have a crack and thinking he's got a bit of strength in him. So where does Benefield go this time? Where does he go? He's going to have to find another corner, or does he give the same move again?
And does that burn a little bit more fuel that they didn't necessarily have to waste? That's the other thing. Look at how much more they've closed up on a Dylan Shepherd now as well. So because Capel's forced to sort of press on a little bit because Benefield's right there and he's got to build that margin to keep himself safe, all of a sudden he's now boxed up right in beneath the splitter of the Audi. And the games are afoot here, Dave.
Yeah, for sure. And we had that graphic earlier suggesting this or the next one's going to be the in-lap for the leaders. Remembering they did the full formation lap in the first stint. That's not happening in this stint now. See if that allows them to extend one further potentially, or what they're thinking. I do wind back to the idea that it looks like the tyres change in about 22 seconds and the 60% fuel takes about 25. So maybe there's a few of them where as soon as the tyres is done, you cut the fueling, you get out of there, and maybe you look to undercut in that way. If this is going to stay green all the way to the end, you might want to try to do something different there.
Yeah, and now Lachlan Capel's got to the inside of Dylan Shepherd, so he has definitely turned the wick up. He's saved more than enough fuel. Shepherd's forced to yield. Capel's going to continue on. They're all going to go that one extra lap on this stop. No, they're not, because the two Porsches in behind, Benefield and Mackay, come to the lane. Is the undercut the strategy to be on? Are they going to find a little bit of advantage? Are they going to put fresh tyres on, be a little bit disadvantage on lap one, but all of a sudden they can attack on that second lap with a bit of tyre temperature and pressure? That will be the big key. These two will not want to squabble on this lap, though. That will be their key. They need to remain single file.
Shepherd's best lap of this race is a 2:00.3. He's just done a 2:01.2 on this lap as he's yielded to Lachlan Capel leading the race. Pit stop times, remembering that they were about 25 seconds last time through. If you see any that are a bit shorter than that, then they're doing something. They're in the kitchen and they're chefing. Not for Daniel Benefield. He's not cooking anything special there with 25 seconds stop. He's come in that one lap earlier than the others. Is there a tyre undercut, even if there's not a fuel undercut?
So Connor Nixon's just pulled a 21.6 there, Dave. So that speaks to Connor making a move and trying to do something different, and maybe getting a little bit of an undercut on this change and making advantage of it the next stop.
So he's tried to make some advantage, and it has pulled him. I was going to say, he looked like he was a lot closer to teammate Dan Yeaman. The two drop bear Mercedes, 2 of 3. Of course, Jackson Tiles already made his retirement here tonight with power surge affecting him. And at the moment, again, they all settle back in. It's this next lap that's the critical one, isn't it?
Lachlan Capel could seriously jump Dylan Shepherd here. So if Capel then goes for a slightly shorter stop, Dylan Shepherd's not been able to hang on this in lap. So 2 laps in a row where Shepherd's dropped 3 seconds or so out on track in pursuit of hitting this field goal that lets him go. Same as Lachlan Capel, who I think's wiggling the car because it's coughing and spluttering down the lane.
Yeah, and he pushed on. Has that come to a disadvantage, though? That will be the big old key. In the meantime, we keep our eyes on the 9-time Sim Sports Porsche of Benefield. Mackay's just been shaken loose from his rear wing. What are these two going to look like when they exit pit lane? Well, time is up on the screen. Capel's he's going to take the full stop. Dylan Shepherd is going to as well. 26 seconds in the box. It was a lot of fuel. Shepherd was slow getting out. So Capel has absolutely managed to jump him in the pits. Might jump him out on the racetrack as well. Benefield's going to go through and pick the pockets of a lot of them. And he'll surge to the race lead. He'll have warmer tyres on board now as well. Capel's going to slot him with them. And have a look at Mackay. Sorry, Mackay's managed to skip through in the middle. Shepherd lost it all in that middle stint.
Look to see Shepherd maybe reset the fastest lap of the race in this stint, though. He's got a bit of work to do with the time he lost on that in lap, the little bit of track position he lost. Obviously ran that tank all the way to the very dregs and therefore has had to really load in the fuel. And sometimes you see this comparison, the car that stopped the lap early, the car that stopped the lap later, and you've run it all the way to the end of the tank. You've got to take 1 or 2 more litres than someone who pitted with half a lap of fuel still in the car. So Shepherd, if he gets back up towards the race lead, is going to be in a good position, though, with 1 lap more of fuel, 1 lap younger tyres, etc., than Benefield and Mackay. But it also puts Lachlan Capel into a really strong position right now.
Yeah, well, just think, has Benefield perhaps intentionally taken a litre or so less just to put himself at the edge, the front end, and just sort of do something about it? Is this Shepherd going into maximum fuel save, or does he go into maximum attack? I think the thing that we've got to keep an eye on, and probably go on the timing tower here, is probably those pit stop times. And has somebody zigged and somebody zagged in terms of they're going to have to take, for these final 2 stints, they're going to have to take, let's just throw a number on it, somewhere around 80 litres, right, of fuel across the 2 stops. Has somebody taken all of it on this stop, or has somebody trimmed a fraction? Because you can't take it all in one. There will be a splash to come. And those numbers next to the drivers' names on the timing tower is how much fuel they took. 25.2 seconds worth of time for Benefield. He was 8 tenths quicker through the lane. That's how he got Capel.
Hey boys, I just got back. I had a chat with Dylan Shepherd, and he said he had to burn a little bit of extra fuel just to try and fight and hold off Lockie as much as he could throughout that stint. So that's what cost him the extra fuel. But he's filled to the brim now, which means that if he does do a splash and dash, it's the absolute minimum he needs to get to the end of the race. So look out, this race is not over.
Yep, and this is a little battle as well.
Picked up the fastest lap of the race just then. So I think there's a few of them that have sort of exited fuel saving and into a little more flat chat right now, like Lachlan Capel, apparently like Daniel Yeaman.
And the battle that we're looking at, even though it's Dan Yeaman that's just picked that one up, but this is Connor Nixon versus Ben Woods. If you have a look at the timing tower, Nixon 20.9 seconds worth of fuel. He is approximately 5.8 seconds less of fuel added at that most recent stop. So he should be lighter, he should be quicker, he should be more agile, because that's not an insignificant amount of fuel. The problem will be is he'll have to get these spots back. And Ethan Bass as well has also taken a lot of fuel load just in behind him, but it's not to the same extreme as Capel.
This imagery right here is very you versus the front-engined V8 naturally aspirated GT3 she told you not to worry about, between the AMG GT3 and the big Ford Mustang. The Ford Mustang, it just looks like the same car, but 20% more.
Yeah. Yeah, look at the amount of places that they've gone and added extra section. A lot in that rear splitter area. The Mercedes has got a lot more on the nose end of it. And that makes up for it with a slimmer rear end of the car. But
we're about to get the first flying laps of everyone since these pit stops, and that's going to be interesting to keep an eye on, knowing how quick Daniel Yeaman was on his sort of flying lap there, where he's clearly gone new tyres, filled it with fuel, but the new tyres has done more than the weight of the fuel has done. So Lachlan Capel flying along sets a new fastest lap of the race. Dean Mackay goes personal best. Dylan Shepherd matches his previous fastest lap of the race, but it's just not quite as quick as Lachlan Capel. So they're all really pushing on right now. Because what it is either, you know, you're making a splash and dash, or there's a safety car that lets you save to the end. There's no this stays green and you save to get to the end. So your best odds is push like hell now.
Does it break that little bit of a save margin? Because everyone was just sort of playing fuel chicken before, but they're not playing fuel chicken anymore. Somebody in this group will absolutely try and save the fuel. Somebody won't. Do you reckon outright pace is better at this stage of the race?
Well, there's no one I can see trying to save to the end, if I'm honest with you. I think that they're pushing, just trying to have, you know, a 1 or a 2 second gap that will cover your splash times at the final splash.
And this little group's come back together again. And again, and again, and again. You reckon they're sick of each other yet?
No? Maybe?
And more on the strategy as Pete joins us once more. Pete, fuel games being played anymore?
Absolutely, mate. Yeah, I just had a chat with Dean Mackay, currently running P3. You know, they're well aware of what's happened to Shep in terms of they run the extra lap, and it was interesting while I was chatting them, the eyes opened because they realised that Lockie Capel had run that same extra lap, and that kind of gives them an eyes open point. But I think they're thinking the same thing we are, that the last sort of 10 minutes in the splash and dashes, you know, if the cars can stay as close as they are, it's going to mix up the field. But if they spread out a bit, I don't think it's going to matter. But so really, the key that we need to watch is, can Dean Mackay and can Dylan Shepherd keep up with Lockie and Dan Benefield? If they can, I think we might see some position changes through that splash and dash. If not, I think we're going to see this run to the end in a fairly open thing. So this is a critical stint for this race.
And we might have to go on board with Lachlan Capel, I think, for just a little bit, just to try and read what he's trying to do from a fuel save perspective. A little bit of a lift there on the run to Tower. And is he going to be on max save out the other side, or is he not? That will be the big old question, because, yeah, there's a little bit of saving going on, but it's not as much as it might have been before.
Yeah, I mean, the last lap pace was still really, really quick for everyone in the top 6 or so.
Yeah, I think we're advantage Lockie Capel right now, given that he and Dylan Shepherd were the last to start, last to stop, which means they're going to need the least amount of fuel to get to the end. But to be able to maintain that advantage, Lockie and Dylan both need to be right up the back of the cars that they're racing, because it's not a big advantage. It's only going to be maybe a 1 second advantage. So they're going to have to be pretty sharp to actually take that and make use of it. So I think right now Lockie's in the box position. Dylan Shepherd's probably dropped off a little bit. He's going to have to just fight back right up to get right up to the back of Dean to make any position changes as a result of the splash and dashes that we think are coming with about 10 minutes to go.
In the meantime, we're watching this little battle. Something's just happened to Mark Healy for him to drop a few spots. But he's in the bottom right. He's fighting back at the moment. Runs wide down at Cunningham. And out across the grass. He's just picked one more back off from Rick Provenzali. And the recovering Jacob Hughes from his issues on lap 1. It's just ahead of these guys. Healy's going to dive into the lane. This is outside of the range to make it home. So he has got one more stop to do. You cannot make it home from here.
Do we have a laps remaining prediction?
Well, survey says 18 to 19. It's somewhere in the 18 to 19 range, we think.
Yeah, he needs that to be 18 to go for him if it's going to stand a chance.
I don't think it's going to be. I agree with you. I think it's going to be 19. I think we've got enough room in the race for it to be 19. So he'll have to splash and dash again at the end of the race, which means he's probably done. Well, Trent Allen, the view from the rear end of the number 27 Mustang at the moment. Nick Wood's finally got the better of him. And is a little bit down the road, although Eli Donaldson, he is going to be so sick and tired of the rear end of that Mustang. Capel closes on the race lead. Dean Mackay, I tell you what, he made a touch of ground on them on that most recent lap, but it was a touch.
Don't know if it's the tyres, but the pace has dropped a tiny bit for these guys. 2:01 for Benefield, 2:00.9 for Capel. The only driver who didn't lose any pace is Dylan Shepherd there, so he's right back. Right back towards the leaders on that lap.
Something further has happened to Martin Lipsky because they're coming up on him to lap him again. And he had a 6-second longer stop at the last pit stop than these guys, which you could only say would be damage repair, would be the only thing. So no fast repair used for that car at the moment. He's just run wide just ahead of the leader, so he'll jump out of the way. You would expect, given he did so. Yeah, he's going to do exactly what he did before. Jump out of the way very, very quickly. And the top 3, top 4 all get their job done on passing him at the moment. Shepherd manages to dive his way through as well. So
at the completion of the stops, Shepherd was something like sort of 2.5 seconds behind the race lead. It's come back down to 1.6. It's come back down to 1.4. It's shrinking.
Capel's closer again to Benefield. He is much, much closer than he has been the last couple of laps. But what is the poke like in a straight line for the McLaren? And it might have... He's lifted. He lifted again. So he is fuel saving. I wonder if Benefield's fuel saving as well and backing him up.
Yeah, I'd love to be able to chat with Lockie Capel, Scotty. We can't, unfortunately, he's not in the Discord access tonight. But I think if Lockie Capel went hell for leather now, I think he could pull away, but it might cost him in terms of the slash and dash. But so I reckon he's playing a real strategy game. He's probably the box seat tonight.
I can tell you Benefield was no save on the way down to turn 1, whereas Capel was major save on the one to the final corner and sunset.
So I think Capel's just playing, I don't need any time advantage over Dylan Shepherd. I just need a fuel advantage over Dylan Shepherd, which is what he's going to look to have for the final stop.
Again, big lift on the way down to the hairpin right here. So Capel is playing the fuel games. What does Mackay do? Sits in the middle. Does he play rear gunner? Does he press on? Does he fuel save? And this race starts to get the tiny little sting in the tail. With a 2-hour race, you sit here, you watch, you wait, and it's at the back end that it all plays out.
I think Adam Jepson's going to be one of the first drivers who pits, and we say he's going to the end from here. So he's making his, I think, 3rd stop right now.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Anybody pitting from now, so we're at 34 minutes, 30 seconds to go. That's 17 to 18 laps. I think that's certainly getting to the finish. So I agree with you there, Dave. Adam's probably the first one there to pit and get to the end.
And time for the third race check-in on Dan Grumpy Cat Yeaman.
No, that's the cat's nickname. Its actual name is Tartare Sauce, remember?
Yeah, but do you call him Tartare Sauce? Because
You know,
he's
I
been
love-
named after the nickname of the cat.
I love that about...
And he's just been made aware that he's on camera again.
I love that about pet names. You got the full spectrum of like, someone will name their cat Tartare Sauce, and someone will name their goldfish Sir Williamington III.
Right? Ferrets. Ferrets are always ones that get interesting names too. They never get straightforward names. The question is, when you look at that face, and we'll pass this one on to the YouTube audience to decide on the future nickname of Dan Yeaman. David Hines and I have the express pleasure of working with him quite regularly. Would you like us to refer to him going forward as Tartare Sauce or Grumpy Cat? We'll leave that choice up to the audience at home. Personal preference, Dave? I think you're a Tartare Sauce, man. I get the feeling.
Yeah, because it makes me think of fish and chips, which makes me think that it's the weekend and it makes me hungry.
You've got me on fish and chips. I'm going to have to go and get fish and chips in the near future. Yeah.
What I love about fish and chips is like, it's that one food left that doesn't have a nation-spanning franchise. Like fried chicken and, you know, hamburgers and, you know, Mexican cuisine, all have a nation-spanning franchise where it's the same everywhere and it's okay. Whereas fish and chips, you work out your local fish and chip shop, and when they're good, they're amazing and they're consistently amazing.
Yeah. I've also been to a number of mini chains, and what I mean by mini chains is a couple of locations tied together. Best fish and chips you guys have ever had nationally, anywhere in the country. Mine was on the Central Coast.
I'm thinking about it, as you've got a swap there. That looks like Dean Mackay pretty simply dropping in behind Dylan Shepherd. Take a look at the lap times again, but now we know that Capel and Shepherd are on the best fuel strategy here, and now there's very little to separate them on track as well. There was a fish and chip shop near my uncle's old house in Geelong that I don't know if it was, you know, bias of I was like 12 or something, but I reckon that seemed pretty good at the time.
And Scotty, I'm going to leave you something completely different. My freshly caught coral trout in a beer batter, done by myself on my own table. Mate, that is the best fish and chips in the world.
Pete regularly goes on offshore fishing adventures. And
See, that's what I'm talking about. It's a food that can be, you know, local and not gigantic national chain, and it feels authentic in that way, and that's another way that Pete's describing it.
yeah, and I actually tell you, you just reminded me. I caught a luderick, which is an incredibly rare fish from my area. Incredibly rare. There's only a few people that have said they've never seen them before. When I was 8, I want to say 8 to 10, somewhere around there. And Grumpy Cat returns to operation. And with the conversation on fish and chips, he will be known as Tartare Sauce for the next few moments. Yeah, it is a plant-based, a fish that eats a lot of seaweed and plants, and it had a very distinct taste and texture to it. It was among some of the best fish I'd ever eaten as well. So thank you for that, Pete. Something I hadn't actually considered.
Let's all go to Vancouver, British Columbia, and do some wild salmon charters or something. I could go some wild salmon right about now.
No, wildest fishing I've ever done was in Thailand. It was giant Mekong catfish, and these things were like a metre long, and you know, you'd cuddle them like both arms right around them. That's how big they were. And yeah, you'd catch them and you have to sort of steer them and pull them away from jetty. Lots of fun, but they were catch and release. So yeah, bit gnarly fishing. I've done lots of it in my life, Yeah, and I caught quite a few Luderick around Bateman's Bay, Scotty. Very tasty on a barbecue, good old Luderick.
But they are
yeah.
more of a tropical fish, aren't they? Like we couldn't believe we found them this far south in America.
No. Actually, I'd say they're more down the south coast of New South Wales,
really?
down towards Victoria. Yeah. But very much a rockfish, seaweed fish, and they get in the rocks. And rockfish we catch a lot of Luderick. So that's where you catch those. You come up here and you're after things like Spanish mac, coral trout, parrotfish, those sorts of stuff. So really tasty. Come up here, Scotty. I've always got a freezer full for you.
Yep, there'll be a weekend where that'll happen for sure. That's definitely in the plans at some point in time. Ashley Collins chimed in over on the SimSpeed YouTube channel to say best fish and chips in Yeppoon, Queensland. So another one that's thrown up there. And yeah, I think the big key, and probably one of the things we haven't even discussed about fish and chips, is the potato scallops. And this is where we get our Victorian viewers riled up. They are not known as potato cake. They are known as potato scallop because the cut of the potato scallop is known as a scallop, and that's why it's called a scallop.
Hey, Scotty, again, I make my own potato scallops, mate, and they are absolutely 100%. So forget the argument between what the Victorians call some rubbish. But potato scallops, mate, come up here. I'll do it with fish and chips, all done homemade, perfect.
I love this commentary box because
Dim
we're all
Sims?
northerners, barring the one that can't talk
right.
on the microphone, who is
there's a race going, mate.
The potato cake comment is quite fun. It's always worthwhile having a look at. In the meantime, battle continues on. Remember, these guys are raging. This will carry on for 18 laps, probably right down until the end of the fuel window, until somebody blinks and finally goes for the undercut. And it might be Dean Mackay that tries to do it. It might even be Dylan Shepherd who tries to accelerate things, and he actually just flashed the lights at Lachlan Capel to let him know he is pressing on, and Capel is fuel saving aggressively, and here comes Shepherd. He's going to try and send it down the inside. Aggressive, that is send. He runs wide at the apex, tries to find the drive out the other side, can't do it. On the marbles, off the road, and there was a flash of the headlights, and that is the intent being shown.
Got in there so ferociously, and he might have a slowdown to clear here as well as he drops back in behind Dean Mackay, and John Shepherd's gone and had a really big go at it, and I think he's sold himself into a fair bit of trouble there.
Yeah, it was a pretty big send, and he knows that Capel is fuel saving, and that's why he's gone for it. The difficult part now is that Mackay is back ahead of him, so he's going to have to earn that one back again. And Mackay let him go pretty easily the last time, so you get the feeling he probably will again, and Shepherd's immediately on the send, gets to his inside. This might cost the pair of these guys. The drafters are going to squabble over it. Shepherd finally gets the job done. Mackay might look for the switchback as they get down the back straightaway. Watch this. Look for Capel to lift off. You'll just see him, there it is. You saw the pipe, and the flame out the pipe nearly tags Benefield.
Your race leader took avoiding action. I think both of them took avoiding action there.
And I was just watching Dean Mackay actually bump drafting with Shepherd down the back straightaway. And now Mackay's gone and tagged the inside barrier. So with the ending in sight and the final pit stop rapidly approaching, it's going to be about 5 to 10 minutes away will be the final pit stop, and that'll be about the furthest they can go on this last run. Everything's just kicked into overdrive.
I think the race just started, didn't it?
Yep. And something's just happened to Jacob Hughes, which might trigger a safety car. Something's going on for, I think he's the sole Lamborghini in the field here tonight.
Nah, well off track, mate. No, they'll be fine. I think this is going to stay green flag.
Well, more incidents at turn 1 we're hearing. Which is odd. Turn 1's been the action spot tonight. But again, it's probably going to be extended drama. So the car's very straight. Is it going to be the right-hand side wall? Brushes it just barely. And then the Lamborghini gets out and away from him. and he gets into it and just says, "Yep, I've had enough." No, drives it off.
Gone in very square. It's the suspension damage that gets you sometimes, but yeah, he's decided. I was told if you have to pull the car over on the right-hand side of the racetrack, because then we can actually get it back to the paddock.
You were talking
So he's
about
done that.
the infield. You're at the inside of the track.
Yeah.
And traffic jumping out of the way is Matt Gerard, who's we've already seen his dramas here tonight, has rejoined the racetrack after getting approval to tow. He's going to dive in a pit lane and stay out of the way of our lead little group. Not a bad idea for him to do so. Continues on. Can Shepherd run down Capel once more? In the meantime, Capel's going to be sitting there and saving as much fuel as he's physically able to. Every little drop, every little advantage starts now.
It's a very mature drive from Lockie Capel, Scotty. I think, we're seeing him. He's had the chance to take the lead and put the wick on, but we've seen him save fuel and just sit behind the leader. I think this is a very mature and well thought out drive so far, and we're yet to see how it's going to play out the final stop, but kind of got a sense and a feeling here that he's going to have a second or two advantage in this last splash and dash.
You'll have noticed the change in the conditions as well. It's more overcast now than it was in qualifying at the start of the race. It's later in the afternoon and the track temperature's dropped from 36 degrees Celsius down to 25. So the track is cooler, potentially a little grippier now, and we're probably going to see fuel-only stops for these final ones for basically everyone. So that'll help them hold on to their tyres in the final slightly longer stint on them.
I mean, I've talked about quite often in the Premier Endurance League series that the GT3 tyre is genuinely good for 100% fuel tank or two. And, many a time before iRacing changed the condition that you could actually change tyres with fuel, many people would race GT3s and put them on for two stops and run them quite fine at race pace. So not always the need to go to another set of tyres. So, in this case with the 60% fuel tank, you really only need one tyre change. But if you're going to do two fuel stops, you might as well take a second. You're not paying for them. But I'll tell you what, if people were forking out for them, they'd probably only be doing one tyre change for this whole race.
Wasn't it the other day that you and I, Dave, were talking about Pirelli? We were talking
the
about
Dunlops are 1,600 for a set, and I did see the Australian Pirelli prices were about $400, $450, $500 each.
So it's about the same per tyre.
Yeah, $1,600 to $2,000 for a brand new set of the dry weather tyres. I think the wets are like 5% more expensive, but you don't need as many sets of them and you don't use them as often. And I think in depending on the conditions, they might even last a little bit longer. Well, they might last a lot less longer if you put them on in the wrong conditions.
Now, could you imagine, like, if iRacing said, all right, a tyre's $1.60 each, instead of $160. And then, but they're kept in a bank, and you can use them until they're like at 25% capacity. Could you imagine how that would change people practicing?
You just know that at some point that's been thrown out in a meeting and being shot down. Like they've thought of it.
It's hard enough now that we subscribe, right, for some. But you just think out loud in terms of the realism of racing, and one of the things that people that get out on and then do real life racing practices, you have to pay for tyres for a practice session in iRacing. That's a really fair point. Like, we can throw $4,000 or $5,000 worth of tyres at a half-hour practice session and not really care about it in iRacing, but you can't do that at a track. So if a tyre was $1 each, but you had a management system in place and managed in a garage and things like that, your tyres for your cars, I think that would change how much practice some people got to do. You wouldn't necessarily just be able to sit on iRacing all day and drive.
Well, I've just been handed the details of where to go and get hand-cut old-school potato scallops and milk bar style. I miss proper milk bar style. And when I said I knew where the best fish and chips were on the Central Coast, it's because it was proper milk bar style. The reason the scallops were so much better was because they were brined properly. That was the big difference. You could literally taste the difference in the brine in those scallops. Always stopped in there whenever I was in the area. They were that good. It became an addiction at different points. So I'm hoping that I can reconnect with a few out that way as well. And for the meantime, we stop and we wait for pit stops to come in. Most of the field, probably about half the field actually, have already made their final pit stop here. They all come for the final stops now. Nick Woods in, Stuart Shaw's in. Look at the times through pit lane, 15.47, 17.6 seconds. And do you mind if we grab those pit stop times back up and on the tower? Because that is what is going to allow us to look at this little group of cars and make some comparisons. Ethan Basswood and Connor Nixon were both short at their most recent stops. Anything that you see into the 19 seconds is probably a touch too long. Anything shorter than that will be Travis' final stop. So Stuart Shaw was one of the longer ones at 17.6 seconds worth of fuel.
Benefield's moved right-hand side a little bit. I think he's actually signalling that he's going to be coming in at the end of this lap, potentially. Maybe trying to make Lachlan Capel aware of that. Keep an eye here. I reckon this could be Benefield in.
Touchdown. Yeah, you're right. Great call. Great spot. Great call. Benefield fires in. Capel's going to continue on by one more lap. What does everyone else do? Yeaman's still out there. Don't forget, Dean Mackay is still sitting line astern with Dylan Shepherd. Has he been fuel saving this entire time? And the Porsche, I can tell you that Porsche is getting tough to handle. He's just had a whole bunch of opposite lock in that car on the run down to turn number one. And now we gather it back up, get it back underneath him. That Porsche is swinging around in the rear end. Is that Porsche doing Porsche things, Pete? Can we not tell JP that just happened?
No, not yet, mate. Not even close. But I reckon what we're seeing now is it is now hammer time for Lockie Capel and Dylan Shepherd. Now that Benefield's off, it's go. It is. There's no, there's no break. There's nobody breaking the wind for you. It's just go. Fastest laps. Get out there. You've done the fuel saving you need to do for the race. Get out there and now fight to the end. I think we've now got the races on now.
14 seconds for Benefield. So I think we can expect probably between 10 to 12 for Capel and Shepherd. That's the feeling I'm going to get.
Yeah, I'm with you, Dave. I reckon that Capel and Shepherd in particular are going to be the shorter of the two, and they're going to come out 1-2. And I think Lockie's in the box seat at the moment for this race.
Now, there's more waiting. This race has exploded a little bit in the last 5 minutes or so. You might see Dean Mackay on his way in. I'm just listening to Capel. Now that he's out in the free air, you just imagine there'll be no fuel saving from him.
Last lap was a quick one from Capel. It was 2:00.4. So anytime they're under 2 minute 1 second, they're pushing, and so you can see that the fastest lap of the race, he's not that far away from it. And he looks pretty tight to the final thought. No, that's the normal line for him. Okay.
What does the next car in line do? Dylan Shepherd is going to be firing into the pit lane. He is going to bring Dean Mackay with him. Capel's gone 1 lap longer than a lot of them. So now that the entire field in behind him is pit, you imagine that he's probably going to come to the lane as well. Where's the next car that we watch and we wait for? The 34 machine of Daniel Benefield comes down the back straight away. Pit stop times, you keep an eye on them. Benefield was 14.3. These drivers finally pull into their boxes. What are their pit stop times going to look like? Expect for Dan Yeaman to be a touch longer. Round the final corner for Benefield. These guys all the way through at the other end of pit lane. They're both rolling out. 12.2, 12.9. Benefield was 14.3. Yeaman 13.9. Where is Benefield going to pop back out? He's cleared the pair of them. So Benefield is back out ahead. Just gets out ahead of Dylan Shepherd. Well, now if you're Capel, what do you do? Do you undercut? Do you try and get that margin? Do you try and hold them up with a little bit of fuel saving to do? They are going to get 59 laps worth of this race in as well. So That will be the race distance. There's no way they'll get this one done in anything less than 59 laps.
So looking at the race leader who's carried on longer than the rest of them. Last lap again, a 2-minute 0.26 for Lachlan Capel. So he's got the hammer down right now. Means that he's probably not going to be able to extend super far compared to the rest of them. But he's doing really good laps now. This is his in-lap. You need a quick in-lap. And he'll probably have a pretty quick stop as well. I think it looks promising for Capel to be still ahead of Benefield after this stop and perhaps by a little bit.
And
one more thing to think about. Remember, Blake Neck had that very early drive-through, dropped him back to like 25th position. We haven't spoken about him much since. But as this all shakes out and goes through, he's coming back towards a top 10. Important for one of the drivers who was inside of the top 10 of the championship after the first round.
Yeah, points will be a big talking point at the back end of this one, and get an opportunity to have a look at that. And Capel has gone another lap again. So he has continued on. He is not coming to the pit lane just yet. The rest of these guys have filed in because they're all hoping to undercut the other and hoping to pop back out ahead. The big news for Shepherd is he's a touch closer. He's just about back in draft of Daniel Benefield. Benefield will be pressing on. He had the longest stop of the lot of these guys at the front.
A big risk here for Capel. Ricky Provenzali's just pulled out in front. He's going to have blue flags very shortly. If Ricky Provenzali holds up Lockie Capel and it's only going to be a half second, it could change the shape of the race. So that's something really to look out for here. And I think that, Lockie Capel, Dave, you said it, if you're doing sub 201s, you're going fast. Lockie Capel's pulled a 202.2, 200.2, 200.2, 200.2 as soon as he's got released. So he has got the hammer down, and I think he's trying to overcut them rather than everybody undercutting him.
Well, the big update as well, just been handed it. Capel will be in at the end of this lap, so there will be no more strategy chicken. There'll be no more Sebring situations. There'll be no more fish and chip style situations. So that's a reference to V8 veterans on Thursday night.
love a good fisherman's basket type situation.
This has got it all. It's got the scallops. It's got the
a couple of calamari rings.
That's what I was thinking. I couldn't think of the word.
Some prawn cutlet things.
Yep. It's a good situation to be in this one because this is what racing and endurance racing is all about. 33 seconds is the margin.
This is a race with some chicken salt on it right now.
Not good for those of you who have sensitive stomachs. But for those of you who don't, the flavour is in the pit lane. And Capel will drive a very, very long time. It feels like an eternity behind the wheel of one of these things, driving down the pit lane as he spots his stall and he'll look to pull it up. Got to be accurate at this point in time. Can't overshoot it. There's no room for that. Look at how close he pulled into the wall. Do you reckon he's trying to make sure that they can just get that fuel hose hooked in very, very quickly?
Oh, they'd be doing that from over the wall, wouldn't they?
Well, he's already rolling. These guys are just coming off the last corner.
That is a 10-second stop. He is 2 seconds faster than Dylan Shepherd, 4 seconds faster than Benefield. He has done it. He's fuel saving. There it is. That is fuel saving 101. Over 2 hours has given him the lead, and it's a substantial lead, Scotty.
Well, it's not over 2 hours because they all pit at the same lap. So the only time you could have made that gain was at that final run to that final stop. And could he have dropped in front of Daniel Benefield? Yes. Would he have pulled away? Probably not. And that's when you just leverage every tool. And this is one of the tools that a modern driver has at his disposal.
Can't go past Ben Woods setting the fastest lap of the race right now. We saw that only one car went underneath 2 minutes in qualifying. Well, the track's cooled off a whole lot. There's a few of them that might not need to fuel save anymore, running around with pretty light cars. Could we see a race lap underneath 2 minutes? We were 34 thousandths of a second away from seeing that Ford Mustang be able to do it. Now there's a couple guys here very well incentivized to really try to hammer out some quick laps.
They're taking too much life out of the tyres. Is there still some saving to do from a couple of these guys as well? Races can be won and lost by the pace that you're able to pull out. And we've reached the critical juncture of the race as well, which means that there will be no safety car between here and the end of the race. So any drivers with issues from here. Car in 23rd just rolled in the pit lane. Rick Provenzali's come back to the attention of his team. Dylan Shepherd wide onto the back straight again. Not for the first time tonight. He's been dipping tyres into the greener stuff off of the racing line. Oh, look at the Audi bounce around in the middle of Sunset. And he's wide. He's collected the barrier. That was contact. So he's pressing on, not willing to lift. Will make contact with the barrier. The car looks okay though.
Yeah, so really absolutely pressing on everywhere. It looks a little out of control. It looks like he could go quicker if he was just a little more under control of the car. It's his will to try to push it on right now. He's still closing in a tiny bit on Benefield. But when we get the next flying lap out of Lachlan Capel, I mean, look at that gap that he's got. 4.5 seconds to Dylan Shepherd with 8 minutes left to go. Traffic's just hopped out of the way of Lachlan Capel at turn 7. No dramas there. And
Bang!
Yeah, he said, I'll have some white and some blue tyres.
You reckon he'll have the whites on the front and the blues on the rear, or the other way around?
Yeah, I think whichever one you're more comfortable doing burnouts with on the rear.
White tyres, white smoke, that might go on the rear end for me.
Congratulations, it's a hoon. That's my impression of a burnout gender reveal.
Yeah, my brain went to the same spot before you got there, so. Just after 10 o'clock, Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. Daylight Savings will be coming to the end in a few weeks' time as well.
Americans start theirs this weekend, if that's of any relevance to anyone. And so, of course, 4 times a year, the clock difference between Sydney and New York changes just to keep you on your toes.
And now, these two drivers going at it. Donaldson has finally managed to get clear of Trent Allen, and by a fair way. And now Stuart Shaw is going to have him along for a little bit of company. Runs it narrow on the way into Tower. Still looking for drive out the other side for Donaldson. Russell Pepperell's strategy didn't play out too badly either. He's resurfaced in 14th. That's definitely a net gain for him.
And I think the Mustangs are looking pretty good right now. Like you saw Ben Woods pick up that fastest lap of the race. I think the conditions must be decent for the Mustang when you don't have to save fuel as well. So I think there's a few of them that are looking decent in this phase of the race.
Well, we're certainly at the tight end, lads. I just dropped into to the team with Dylan Shepherd and Ben Woods, and Shep's gone all quiet, all mute, no chat, no, not even talking to Ben. So he is head down, other end up, and he is fighting for a second place in this race. So it's all serious business there now.
Any word from Ben Woods? How comfortable he's feeling, given he set the fastest lap of the race?
Yeah, he's a little bit off that he's not up there with the rest of them. I said, "Oh, fair crack, mate. This is a pretty fair competition up there." And he goes, "Yeah, he still wants to be up there. So not where he wants to be. Happy that he's got the fastest lap, but I think a little bit disappointed overall that he's not in the fight for at least a podium or a win." So that was the noise from Ben. But he's happy to see Dylan up there, and I think between him, Dylan, and myself popping in and out, it's at a stage now where it's just head down and see what happens.
Now I'm looking at the time left on the clock. We're pretty certain to be 3 more to go right here. There's no ambiguity about the race length, which there sometimes can be in these timed races. But 59 laps will be the race distance, I think. No worries at all. Your race leader crossing with 5 minutes to go, which means that the next time we come around is 3 minutes to go. The next time 1 minute to go, get the white flag and have the checkered flag after time expires. 3 more laps.
Yep, and again, Shepherd starts to close back in towards The cars ahead of him, Cape will stretch that margin out, but the pace is starting to lack out of the Porsche. Do you wonder?
There's a man bottom of screen, anxious for when he can clock off.
Is he holding a black flag in his hand, by the way? That looked like that was a black flag. It was green, apparently, we're hearing. It's just lighting. It's not necessarily reflecting off it the right way. Do you reckon he might have grumpy cat face?
Well, he's hoping he can get down to Apex Restaurant at 7 Hotel at turn 7 in time to get that bottle of wine special. Now, if you and I were doing steak and bottle of wine special, which bottle are we getting? Is it red, white, or sparkling?
It's gonna be white. I'm not a red man. Red just definitely turns the stomach in me, unfortunately. But steak,
Okay.
red wine, and chatting about that time, we both got the commentator alongside John Hindhaugh, I think.
Fair enough. We'll go that.
You better bring your own drinks to Bathurst then, Scotty.
I have got a Bathurst trip in the works actually with Pete later on in the year, which I'm very much looking forward to. At the moment, though, second to last circuit looms as we begin the penultimate lap in just a few moments. Capel will cross the line. He will have 2 more left to run the margin out, 4.6 seconds, so there's no question marks over his fuel capacity either. He's definitely got more than enough.
New PB lap for Lachlan
guys.
Capel leading out front there as well. He extends the margin over Benefield, extends the margin over Shepherd, and shows no signs of slowing down.
He's just got a sting in the tail in the final few moments. I tell you, Eli Donaldson and Stewie Shaw still have not resolved their tussle deeper in the field as well. Still quite close together, as is that of Michael Whiting and Russell Pepperell. Come back together at the tail end of this one. And that's confirmation of Eli Donaldson, Stewie Shaw, and then the 2 in behind them is Pepperell and Whiting. Those are the main battles going on throughout the field at the moment. Ethan Bass has closed up a little bit on Connor Nixon, but still sits just over a second behind, so he's going to find it very difficult to get there with a couple to go. Donaldson, though, continuously closed in on the Porsche ahead of him. Have you managed to get behind the wheel of anyone? Has anyone else given you a steer of their Formula V or Formula Ford, or let you sit in the tub in a while, Dave?
No. No.
Wasn't it because the last few times you've sat in somebody's car that they've had bad luck? There was one stage where you sat in their car and
I was
they
good
immediately
luck.
won the next race. Yeah.
I was good luck for a little while.
And Denner Benefield is starting to have connection dramas at the very, very end of this one. There could be a sting left in the tail. Lachlan Capel is going to come out of the last corner. White flag is in the air. 2 hours worth of racing for the Game of Gear Direct Premier Endurance League Endurance Series from Sebring Race. One more circuit it will have in it. Lachlan Capel has the margin by about 5 seconds. Dylan Shepherd might have just lucked his way into P2 because Benefield has not returned. And he's been away for a very, very long time at this point, and I'm just waiting to hear the message. But he has been dropped from the server. The 308 machine of Nick Wood has been run down by Blake Nex. And Neck, after driving his way back through the field, gets up to 9th spot with a chance to potentially steal 8th. He's going to lose ground to Connor Nixon in terms of the overall points. There's not much you can really do about that at the moment. But he's had to drive the wheels off the McLaren, and do that, he has done a sensational job.
I'm still fingers crossed for a sub 2 minute lap time on the final lap here from someone. Does this look like Look like Capel's still going for it.
And for Capel, there will be one more corner left to run. It'll be the final one. Dips the tyre off on the run out of Le Mans and down the Ullman Straight. One more corner left to go. Sunset Bend, one of the toughest and most technical corners in racing the world over. It's a corner that just keeps on going. It tightens, it tightens. There's so many bumps throughout the duration, but it is not bested Lachlan Capel and his McLaren out of the final corner here tonight. He'll win it from Sebring. Dylan Shepherd will get back for P number 2. Couldn't stop the Mustang's fuel-saving potency here tonight. Dean Mackay's Porsche will round out your podium, and Dan Yeaman gets across the line in 4th. This one's still going on between Pepperell, though, and Michael Whiting as they come out and onto the back straight. And the Mustang, a little bit of straight line speed, has been able to clear Whiting just, but now they get to the braking zone. Whiting looks like he's going to touch more downforce on. Tries to go the long way round. Not necessarily going to happen. The drive out the other side. Pepperell will clear him and get the job done just down the road from these guys. Pepperell's out of fuel. Pepperell is out of fuel. Just gets to the line and hangs onto it over Michael Whiting.
Looks like your race winner's also out of fuel post to the checkered flag here as well, but a great performance from Lachlan Capel, Dylan Shepherd, Dean Mackay, and Daniel Benefield, who was up there in the podium spot. So he lost power really late on in this 2-hour race.
Not just power from the car, power from the house as well. Unfortunate. These two are sharing fuel to get home on the final lap because Dylan Shepherd was doing the pushing a few moments ago. Now it's Lachlan Capel's turn. Final car. We're keeping half an eye on at the moment. Brad Coates gets home. There's one more driver to finish, which will be that of Martin Lipsky. Albeit he'll finish 2 laps down. And that is going to be it from Sebring.
This is what it's going to deliver us. Lachlan Capel, the race winner from Dylan Shepherd, sneaking up into that 2nd place. Dean Mackay sneaking up into 3rd as Daniel Benefield drops out of the race. Daniel Yeaman probably had sight of the leaders the whole time, but he didn't have their slipstream, and he ends up 4th ahead of Ben Woods. Then Connor Nixon, Ethan Bass, Nick Wood, Blake Neck, and Andrew Scordilis completing that top 10. Blake Neck coming back from 25th or so to salvage some really, really important points.
Yeah, and Stewie Shaw getting home just outside of that top 10 as well. Eli Donson, Russell Pepperell, Michael Whiting, Trent Allen, Adam Jepson. There was a few good battles in here, and I was just thinking there's some extra bits and pieces. Adam Jepson, Gene McClune, Leith McClimate. Actually, we didn't even see Gene McClune across the duration there tonight. 19th and 20th was rounded out by Angus Lawford and Tommy Wallace. There, Dave.
Yes, last car on the lead lap. Brad Coates, Bobby Commode 1 lap down, Adam Burhop 1 lap down, Daniel Benefield 2 laps down and perhaps heartbroken. Matthew Gerard, Martin Lipsky, Rick Provenzali 6 laps down, Jackie Hughes 13 laps down, Mark Killy 18 laps down. I think you haven't completed half race distance by this point if you're Owen Coleman in 30th. And just that was almost it. Blake Delaney, Jackson Dial, the 2 early retirements in this one.
Yep, that's 2 hours from Sebring in the books. But now we'll get the opportunity to have a chat to our podium from the 3rd step on up. We're going to have a quick chat to Dean Mackay first, mate. Cars ahead of you. It was close battling right the way throughout that race, but it came down to fuel strategy and just a touch on the wrong end of that one, but got a little bit of luck, obviously, with the issues for Benefield late on there.
Yeah, really tough competition tonight. So the three guys in front of me was Lachlan, Shepard, and Daniel. I think they outpaced me. I had a couple tenths a bit. I was struggling to keep behind them in the draft, pretty much the whole race, to be honest. But yeah, Lachlan pulled a really good fuel strategy at the end there. Got a really nice gap, and yeah, I was in fourth. I was pretty happy with fourth. Unfortunately, Daniel disconnected. So yeah, stepped up to third. Overall, I think I drove a pretty clean, pretty good race.
In terms of things here tonight, man, obviously fuel strategy was just such a major part about that one. Couldn't quite go the distance. The splash and dash was to come there at the back end. I think tyres were quite a big factor as well. Everyone was pretty quick to take tyres at both of the full fuel stops. What was the wear like from your perspective? Because they just seemed to go away just a touch.
Yeah, I mean the track was cooling down towards the end of the race, but tyre wear is still pretty bad around here. Yeah, in the last splash and dash, I don't think anyone took tyres that was near me. But yeah, towards the end, tyres were not great.
Right, finally, next time out, we're off to Monza. How's the poke of this thing in a straight line? How are you feeling about the confidence levels heading into that in a month's time?
Oh, not that confident, to be honest. Porsche maybe not the best choice for Monza. But I'm going to hope for some rain on the forecast. I think there's like 50-60% rain roughly, so hopefully the rain will even out the field.
Mate, well, best of luck there and then, and who would you like to give a thank you and a shout out to here tonight?
Thanks to Tommy and Blake for coming out tonight and racing with me, and also major thank you to our major sponsor, Astro Energy.
Thank you very much for joining us here tonight, Dean Mackay, and we'll chat to you again in the near future, mate.
Cheers.
Take one step further forward on the podium. David Haynes has got Dylan Shepard on standby.
How's it going?
Well, how the Audi feel definitely seems like fast corners around here you can benefit.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was quick in the hot weather as the track gripped up. It yeah, didn't seem to have as much on the other boys, but I mean, it's probably like I had the pace to win, just yeah, a little bit in the strategy and a little bit down the straight line, which meant I had to do a few big dive bombs. But yeah, no, it was pretty good.
It's like we spent an hour and a half building up the strategy in the last 20 minutes, unraveling it. Obviously, you're driving the first couple of stints in the pack, and you know who's lifting, who's playing games, and how it's all setting up.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was leading for the first hour and a half, so I knew that the boys behind were fuel saving, and I was trying to do the same. I knew I couldn't do it just as much, and then yeah, I saw the two Porsches pit, and I knew I could get an extra lap, but it had to be a massive fuel save, so lost a bit of time doing like a really slow lap saving fuel. That probably cost me a bit, and then trying to regain that time plus a stall in the pit box. Trying to gain that time back meant the fuel save went out the window in the second last stint, so it put me behind Lockie for that last stint.
And if circumstances had been different, what would have given you a stronger chance? Early safety car, late safety car, rain? What would have benefited you, your strategy, and the Audi's strengths?
Look, I probably have to really go into it because I think that was a pretty good race. I don't think there was anything that would benefit me. I think would benefit anyone else as well. I think the other boys just executed better than me today. So, yeah, I think if anything, just not leading the whole time would have been great. I tried to fuel save more than I needed to and like almost let the cars behind go, but they just didn't want to take the bait. So they knew leaving me at the front would make me consume more fuel. So just stuck out there, but thought we could do it, but yeah, just fell a little bit short.
All day long, we only saw one lap underneath 2 minutes. It was your qualifying lap to whack it on pole, so you can hang your hat on that one, I reckon.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since I've got a pole position in a league as big as this, so Look, that was pretty cool. Pretty happy with that. I'm sure Dean was showing really good pace earlier in the week. Well, last night in the official practice, and even tonight. So I think if he had executed his lap, I'm sure he could have done the same as well. But yeah, it was cool to execute it and put it on pole.
Well, good points at the end of this one, and we'll see you at the next one, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully, sure. Yeah, very keen for it. This series is turning out to be a ripper. So yeah, thanks boys for putting on the stream, and thanks for the race control and the admin team for putting on an awesome series.
There we go, Scott.
Yep, and P2 tonight for Dylan Shepherd. We'll move on tonight's race winner for Evolution Racing Team, ? Lachlan Capel driving the number 8 McLaren there, buddy. Interesting night at the office. A lot of fuel saving that went on during that race, back and forth. A little bit of a window to save a lot more fuel on that last one, just with Shepherd coming a little bit further out behind. So he was just able to, couldn't really necessarily get the job done and pull away. And all the investment went into the fuel saving in that final stint.
Yeah, with Shep, I was talking to him. He said he stalled in the pit lane, so that's probably where he lost that little bit of time. Had he not done that, I may have been out ahead of him. It might have been a bit of a different story. But I managed to save an extra lap or two behind Benefield, which is why I think the gap was so big coming out of pit lane for the last time, which did help, because if I had gone a little bit shorter in the first stint, I would have been out ahead of him, and then he would have played the fuel games on me. So with fuel tanks limited like this and how they run, it's you've got to sort of save as much fuel as you can whilst being able to keep the pace up, which I managed to do. The pace wasn't too great, but I figured it out in the end.
Interesting note that that temperature came down at the back end of the race as well. Talk to us a little bit about the fuel saving games as the pace comes up later on in the race. It's a lot more difficult to save the fuel as well, because all of a sudden the cars you can drive through the corners that much faster.
Yeah, the car felt a little bit worse for wear in that hot attempt. Going down, I was really struggling, I think, the first stint, especially with the tyres. The front seemed to be starting to push a bit, but yeah, as you said, the grip comes around and you just start wanting to push the pedal down more. But what I seemed to be able to do was to let the car roll through the corner a lot with using all the brake, and then getting that perfect moment where you can full throttle it, so you don't have to have the throttle curve, which seemed to save a bit more fuel than just slowly getting on the power, because you're not touching the throttle and it's not using any fuel in the car. That was really helpful in the first and the last corners, where I wasn't getting on the throttle until probably 80% of the way through the corner, but I was still managing to keep the pace through due to the motion of the car. But it was quite difficult, but I have done quite a bit. I've got quite a bit of experience in fuel saving, especially being behind the fuel saver himself, Ross Rizzo, during the Ozpass days a couple of years ago. So I've learnt a thing or two.
Mate, finally, a lot of boys over on the did know that you were running around with the Drop Bear guys a little bit earlier on. Good fun to get out there and take the mickey out of a few drivers in the team whilst you're having a good race. That's what it's all about, Premier Endurance League too, isn't it? Yeah,
it's all about just having fun. It's with my mindset to these races, they're obviously to be competitive, but it's not pro invitational, so it's not the stress and levels of pain that went during the qual series and now the main series that I got into. So it's a lot more of fun, just sort of a chill out league. Still really, really good competition in GT3, so I was really happy to actually have some battles and have a bit of gamesmanship going on, because I haven't had that in quite a while. Yeah, just talking to the Drop Bear guys occasionally just to see how they were going, and then also having a good talk with Shep and Blackout OPR, because they've got some serious pace over the last couple weeks and they're becoming a really big contender in GT racing.
Mate, finally, congratulations on the race win. Who would you like to give a thank you to?
Huge thank you to Evolution Racing Team and Logitech for their ongoing sponsorship, as well as MPI and Gamer Gear, OG Gamer Gear, for their support within the team as well. And a big shout out to you guys at the broadcast for putting it on, and Ricky for inviting me into the league and letting me know that this is the way that they were going to go, because as far as I can see, it's producing some really good racing, and hopefully some more good results will come from it.
Right, congratulations on the race win here tonight, mate, and go and enjoy celebrating with the team.
Thanks, guys.
Well, that brings us to conclusion of racing action here from Sebring. But before we drop out of tonight's broadcast, an interesting shake-up. Well, there's been a few up and down results. The guys that were quick last time out were Connor Nixon and Blake Neck. However, they haven't had the best race results here tonight. Where do they sit in terms of points? Well, at the moment, leading the way by 17 points. Again, these are provisional. More to come on that. Of course, never take our final standings that we've got on screen, because post-race penalties always do have to apply bonus points to be calculated as well. 17 points lead for Connor Nixon at the front end of town right there. So it was an interesting points battle. Next time out for the GT3 Open Series will be Saturday, the 13th of April. And we're going to be taking place in Monza. Straight line speed will be the supreme factor from the Temple of Speed, but also we won't be going around that banking, but we can sit here and reminisce about days when cars would have it at Monza there, Dave.
Yeah, we can still go underneath it on the way down to Ascari, though, and still have incredibly high average speeds along the 4 key straights of the racetrack, the front straight up to the second chicane, underneath the banking towards Ascari, and then on the back straight towards Parabolica Curva Alboreto. It's always a pack racing kind of dynamic, and we look forward to it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you join us again there next time. Your Gamer Gear Direct Premier Endurance Racing League will kick off for round number 3 on the 13th of April. We'll see you all then for another 2 hours worth of racing action for the Premier Endurance League.